Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be back with you for another exciting episode of On the Move with Mac Worley. I, of course, am your host, Mac Worley III. First episode of 2017. We're in the future, y'all. We got like flying cars and all of that. By the way, if you're not aware, we're past the point when in Back to the Future they went to the future. If you guys aren't familiar with this, I believe it was in 2015, 2016, something like that. We're already past that, so where's my flying freaking car? I want jackets that fit. You hit a button and it just automatically adjusts to your size. And hoverboard. I want a hoverboard. I'm telling you right now, I've seen these ones that are coming out. They have like magnets, but it has to be on like a rail of magnets that it'll stay on. We're not quite there. Not quite there. Although there are some pretty awesome like water jet boots things that you have like a tube of water. It's pushing water out and makes you fly, but you have to be above water to do it. So pretty cool stuff, but we're in the future. And by the way, if you're just now joining the show, if you've never listened to this show before, we talk about all sorts of stuff over here. This is, we like to focus on government, politics, news, sometimes technology, like I was just doing tech stuff, philosophy. I'm a libertarian with some conservative leanings, and I like to give you the news from that perspective, through the lens of a libertarian. My philosophy is essentially the non-aggression principle, which all boils down to you don't hurt other people and you don't take their stuff, and if you did that, it's immoral. So that's what I try to apply to everything. I look at government through that lens. I look at my personal interactions with other people and, what's going on in the news through that lens. So if you're not familiar with that, we broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at OnTheMoveShow.com. That's our website. That's the hub. You can get everything there, OnTheMoveShow.com. We also have a shop over there. I'd appreciate it if you check out our shop. Click the shop link. Purchase our original design t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, phone cases. You'll be helping the show. That helps us buy new equipment, things like that. So I would be much obliged. And also, you can check us out and follow us over at Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. And subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. First and foremost, I would like to give a huge shout out to the Bearded Patriot. Thank you so much to the Bearded Patriot, TBP, as he's known on the street, for co-hosting our last episode 146. I thought he did a really good job. And by the way, he has never done a 2-hour show before. That was his first time ever doing a 2-hour show. And I thought he did a great job. If you guys did too, if you checked out that episode 146, the last one of our program, please let him know. Show him some love. Let him know. Follow him. Subscribe to him, all that stuff. He's on Spreaker as well, The Bearded Patriot. Just search it, The Bearded Patriot. He's also on Twitter. I can't remember what his Twitter handle is. Let me hop on the Twitter here and see if I can find him. The Bearded Patriot. This is not working here. I can't find him. He's a difficult man to find. Let me see if I can scroll through my notifications. Here we go. At Bearded Talk. Follow him over there. He's, like I said, he's got a great podcast. I picked him to fill in because I thought you guys would like him. So if you did, follow him, check out his stuff, and show him some support. Okay, so without further ado, today's episode is titled Russia Didn't Hack the Election. This is episode 147 of On the Move Show, and we have a slew of featured topics. There's so many things that have happened since I've last talked with you, since I took some time off for the holiday season. I had it. By the way, I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If you celebrated any other, traditions, anything like that. I hope you had a good time. I hope you had plenty of food in your belly and lots of good company. So now moving on, business at hand, because it's been a while since we've last talked, and boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of stuff to get to, and we're not going to have time. I have so much stuff here. I know there's absolutely no way that we're going to get to it all. There's going to be so much that's going to be left on the cutting room floor, but we'll just have to play catch up here because that's how things roll at the beginning of the year. All right, first featured topic, Russia never hacked the election system. So what exactly did they hack? We've talked about this before. We're going to talk about it again. We need to be crystal clear on what Russia supposedly did. And again, these are allegations against Russia. I believe Russia did do the hacking in what I'm about to tell you, what they hacked. But we need to be very clear about what they're being... what they're alleging, what people are alleging they hacked in the first place, and why. So then I want to talk about why is the media purposefully misleading the public about the Russian hacking scandal. I want to talk about the left's hypocritical blame game on the election results, how they blamed the Electoral College, Russia, Director Comey, blah, blah, blah. And I want to mention Two-Faced Obama, how he lied about trying to help with the transition of power. You guys may have heard that clip. If you haven't, we're going to play it, so we're going to get to that. And then I'm going to tell you why he lied, how we know he's lied. And I want to talk about Obama's boots, how Obama booted out Russian diplomats, and how Putin says that he's not going to expel U.S. diplomats in return. That was a very big news story. Also, a huge news story that's happened. The U.S. abstains from UN vote criticizing Israeli settlements. We're going to talk about that, dissect that a bit. I want to talk about this Chinese housing bubble that has been in the news a little bit, and also musician John Legend, how he's vowed to oppose Donald Trump's presidency every step of the way. Now, this may not seem like a big story, but you know what? I'm going to talk about it because this is, frankly, one of those things that I absolutely... it gets stuck in my craw when entertainers start talking politics and they really start distracting from why we listen to them in the first place, and then they get all political and it bothers us, so we're going to get to that. Lastly... there's been a terror attack in Istanbul. A man dressed in a Santa Claus costume, he opened fire in a crowded nightclub, killing 39. If we have time to get to that in the third hour, we will. We have a lot more on the agenda, so many other news articles to get to. If you have anything on your mind, if you would like to join today's conversation, I would love that. I'd rather have a dialogue with you than a monologue. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that is 360-450-5625. The MacPack phone lines are open, so please give us a call. You can also message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow, and we'll read your messages live on the air if deemed worthy. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive right in, so you guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On The Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On The Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
And we're back. I appreciate you all staying with us to the break. All right, so at this point, I want to take a moment here, since it is the new year. It's the first episode of the new year. My good friend, Mark Watkins, he's a writer. He's been writing some blogs and writing commentary, some op-eds, and all those things. So I want to give a shout-out to Mark, first of all. I know sometimes he listens to the program, and I want to read just a little bit here of an article he wrote on lanterns.buzz. And this article was titled, Welcome 2017, We've Been Waiting for You. He talks about how this has been a particularly bad year as it's coming to an end now, from Nancy Reagan to Fidel Castro, from Justice Antonin Scalia to Janet Reno and Merrill Haggard to Prince, and the list of notables that passed away in 2016 has been especially well notable. So he talks about how we had a very long 2016. It seemed like a horrible year, with most of it having been wrapped up in the presidential primaries. The GOP primary, a seemingly endless time, concluded ultimately in his home state of Indiana with the eventual nomination of Donald Trump. So he writes here things that he's looking forward to in 2017. He says, first and perhaps most obviously, I'm looking forward to President Obama becoming former President Obama on January 20th. Wow, I am just very excited about this as well. This is definitely the end of an era, and I don't know what the future is going to look like. I have no idea. I have been a critic of Donald Trump. FYI, if you don't know anything about me, I've been critical of Donald Trump, but I have said I hope he does a good job at shrinking the size, scope, and reach of the federal government. I hope that it doesn't have an influence in our lives as much as it does now. And if he does that, then I will be pleasantly surprised. And if he manages to do that, I will be happy. Now I don't, I'm not going to get into all the stuff about Donald Trump. I could go all day, but I don't particularly think that's going to happen. I think he will still grow the state. That's just my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, that is completely fine. You can give me a call. You can call us, and we can have a little debate about that if you want. And not even a debate, just a little civil chat. I promise to you, I don't like to do the gotcha moments and try to make you look stupid. That's not what I'm doing. I just want to have a genuine conversation, an honest, intellectual conversation with people about the issues, whether or not we agree or disagree. I actually really like speaking to people who I disagree with, because it's a lot more interesting. The conversation is typically more stimulating. But I digress. So back to the article here that Mark wrote. He said there's going to be no more President Clintons. Along those lines, he says, I'll include the following. Harry Reid will, for the first time ever since 1983, no longer be part of the government payroll. For the first time since Joe Biden became a senator in 1973 and vice president in 2009, he is no longer part of the government. For the first time since John Kerry became a senator in 1985 and the Secretary of State in 2013, he is no longer part of the government. That's amazing. Following the 8 years of Barack Obama presidency, the Republicans hold an unprecedented number of elected offices at both the federal and state level. Let's hope they understand how they got in that position. Now, I want to talk about this for just one moment here. We've on this show, we've mentioned this theory. It's the swinging pendulum theory, where as we start moving, politically speaking, as our government starts swinging to the political left, all right, or the right, no matter the direction, the pendulum begins to eventually swing back, and the momentum comes back the other way. And this is something that I just want to be very careful on, and I hope that this administration, this incoming administration, the Trump administration, I hope that they keep that in mind. And rather than pushing the agenda so far to the right, I hope that they dismantle the pendulum. And what I mean by that is to remove a lot of this government power that the government has to even influence our life. If we dismantle this government, this federal leviathan, we can make sure that no future president can ever use executive authority, the imperial presidency, and we can restore the checks and balances that our founders created. So at this point, we have a caller on the line. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Luke Skywalker.
Hey, Luke. What can I do for you? What's on your mind, bud?
I'm calling... I do all the discussions and negotiations for my team, so I'm calling specifically on the subject of taxation of property, of home property.
Okay. So what's on your mind? What about that?
Taxation of home property has only existed, for the most part, since after the Civil War. It originated in Illinois in the early 1800s, and it is a form of slavery. Currently in America, in 99.9% of places in America, there is no such thing as home ownership. There are a few towns in America where you can have tax-free property, but that's it. For the most part, people are enslaved to regional governments for their own home.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you on this. I just want to double check here. Are you calling in reference to the Americans Against Property Tax group that I was speaking to someone offline about?
Oh, the new group, yes. That's part of it, yes. I'm calling on the subject in general of property taxation, and that it has to end because it's wrong.
And I absolutely agree with you, bud. For me, I've been against property tax since as long as I understood it, simply because we don't own anything. We're simply renting from our government if we have to make continuous payments on this. We don't actually own anything, and I'm a huge proponent, being a libertarian myself, of property rights. I believe you have a right to keep what you earn. The spoils of your work, your sweat, your labor belongs to you, and what you produce with that, be it private property or physical cash, gold, whatever, that belongs to you, and no one else has claim over it. Not a private individual, and not the federal or state government, local government. I'm with you on that. So I want to give an opportunity here for you guys to actually promote this new group on Facebook. It's Americans Against Property Tax. You can go to facebook.com/groups/Americans Against Property Tax. Again, that's on Facebook. So, by the way, Luke, did you have any final thoughts on property tax? You want to make any final thoughts as to why people should oppose this tax?
Yes, there's a lot of taxes that are unfair, and we could talk for hours about all those. However, I graduated from a survival school years ago, and in the school I went to, they have what's called the sacred order of survival. One is shelter. That's number one, and I'll just leave it at that. Shelter is the number one survival priority, and that we have to work step by step. If we start with just property tax and eventually work on to other unfair taxations, that's fine. But right now, property tax is the most vital tax to fight against.
I definitely agree with you. So let me ask you, what are you guys doing to fight against this specifically, other than just public relations, trying to get the word out, things like that?
This is a brand new concept, so it's in its infancy at this moment. At the moment, right now, it's just starting with a Facebook page and word of mouth, talking with people. Eventually, let's say we get 1 million people on board. That's a good start. And let's just say worst case scenario, if things can't be done through legal means to get this changed, let's say 200 million Americans are fed up with paying property tax, and everybody simultaneously stops paying property tax. They cannot take away everyone's home. Just impossible. The police, to begin with, the sheriffs, would not go along with that because they don't. You know what I'm saying? If let's say there's a number of sheriffs all over America that say no more property tax, we're not paying, and then it's forced by numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. This reminds me of the Cloward Piven strategy. You may be familiar with these lefties from back in the day. These guys were really extremists, but the strategy is sound insofar as it's an attempt to basically overwhelm the system. What they wanted was to have the public, U.S. public, actually overload the welfare system and cause a crisis, essentially. In this regard, it's similar to what you're saying. If people just stop paying their taxes, for example, if everybody decided that they weren't going to play this taxation game anymore, there's not enough jails for everybody. They can't come after us all. And again, the government is funded by this process. So if everybody was in on it, then it would, this would be beneficial. The problem is obviously trying to get enough people in on it. In the Cloward and Piven strategy, they were suggesting basically people stop paying their housing payments. They stop paying bills to the banks and things like that to overwhelm and overload the system. But I really appreciate you calling in, Mr. Skywalker. I wish you the best of luck and Happy New Year. All right, folks, so let's go ahead and get back into the conversation of the feature topics here. Let's see, where were we? I lost track. I lost my train of thought here. Mark Watkins, his article over here on lanterns.buzz. Okay, so he's talking about, let's see, how we hope that the Republicans the Republicans are holding an unprecedented number of elected offices. They have, the most governorships. They won at the state legislature. They have a huge majority of Republicans holding state legislatures. Now, obviously, we got the Republicans have the House, the federal Senate. They have a huge mandate to get things done. My hope, my desire is that they use this election landslide, and not just with the president, the presidential office, but with everything that they've won. I mean, they had big wins all over the country. That they use this to dismantle the federal power, the government's power, and they can do this in just a few simple things. Like, first of all, strengthening the Second Amendment. Putting a bulwark there. Making sure that it is crystal freaking clear that this is an individual right. Getting rid of restrictive gun laws. Personally, I would like to have a conversation and really hash out with somebody who supports the reciprocity. I think is the word. Reciprocity, I think, is the word. That's it. For concealed carry, like a federal law that would make it legal. I could go either way on that. I support being able to carry my gun wherever, and I believe that the Second Amendment is valid insofar as because the 14th Amendment is being applied across the board to other laws, and it's not. Basically, long story short, the Constitution was originally intended to only be, the federal Constitution was only supposed to protect you against the federal government encroaching upon your rights. It had limited the power of the federal government, but the Bill of Rights inside there says that Congress can't do this. Congress can't do that. And it wasn't intended to apply to state and local governments. But after the 14th Amendment, they created this class of citizen called the federal citizen, and now the federal government has been applying the federal Constitution to the rest of the people in the country. So whether or not it's from your local or state government, the federal Constitution now is applied. So I could go either way. I happen to be an originalist. I happen to believe in states' rights. So typically the way I view the Constitution is the way I believe it ought to be, that the federal Constitution should only apply to the federal government, and state and local governments have the right to do whatever they want. This is a state right issue. This is the way I look at it. This is why, in regards to gay marriage, though I support the ability of people to get married no matter what sexuality, race, religious bias, and it doesn't matter to me. I support that. I also support states' rights. However, this is a complicated issue as well, because I don't believe that the federal or state or local government has any right whatsoever to be involved in your religious ceremony, which is exactly what a wedding is. So, again, I just don't support the Supreme Court's decision to decide to legislate from the bench on an issue that is not clearly enshrined in the Constitution as far as being a federal issue. If anything, it is a state issue. if we're speaking constitutionally. But as an individual, I think we all have a right to engage in a marriage of our choice. As long as it's two consenting adults, I don't have any problem with it. And you know what? Even if it's an inanimate object, if it's your inanimate object, if it's your property, I don't care. You can marry your tree. I don't care. But I'll tell you right now, if you sell that tree, that you can't be married to it anymore. All right? You don't have any right to that. So anyway. Okay, back to this article here. We got he mentions Rick Perry is the head of the Department of Energy, a department that he once said should be abolished. That he will act in that capacity. We hope so. That would be very interesting if he actually does abolish his own department. And this reminds me of that Parks and Rec guy, Ron Swanson. He was part of the Parks and Rec department. He was running that department, but yet he believed in privatization, and he wanted to actually get rid of his own department. That was his whole plan. So that's Rick Perry is the new Ron Swanson. He talks about here. Mark continues. He talks about the EPA headed by Scott Pruitt will begin to roll back business-crushing regulations of the recent years. I'm really excited about that. The nomination of a Supreme Court justice who will promise to honor and preserve the United States Constitution. Now, this is all contingent on what Donald Trump decides to nominate, who he decides to nominate. And, I find it so, I would say funny, but it's just sad. That's really what it is. It's sad that the left, they're so hypocritical. Now they're talking about how, we need to work together. We need to work together, and how there needs to be some compromises on the Supreme Court. But I guarantee you, if we had a crystal ball, if we could look into this crystal ball into what could have happened underneath Hillary Clinton, it would have been elections have consequences, and these are some of the consequences that clearly the American people want us to shove progressive, Supreme Court justices down your throat. Harry Reid's talking about the same kind of thing. We need to try to obfuscate. Oh, and by the way, I think it's very interesting that the Democrats they kept complaining that the Republicans were disruptive or trying to slow everything down. They kept complaining about it. I forget the word that they used precisely, but they were complaining that they were basically obstructing. Yeah, obstructing. That was the word. They were being obstructionists in Congress. Well, now who are going to be the obstructionists? We have articles about that. In fact, let me go ahead and just I'll bring some of these up since it looks like today's show is just flying by. We have an article on theblaze.com. This article is written by Chris Enol. It's titled, Top Senate Democrat, We Will Work to Undermine, Slow Down Trump Cabinet Confirmation Hearings. So they're now vowing to slow down the confirmation process of 8 of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet nominees. And this is what they're promising. So now who's being the obstructionist? They're saying if Republicans think they can quickly jam through a whole slate of nominees without a fair hearing process, they're sorely mistaken. He went on to say, adding that Trump is attempting to fill his rigged cabinet with nominees that would break key campaign promises and have made millions off industries they'd be tasked with regulating. So, look, it doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters that these guys are saying because they're hypocrites. These guys are so hypocritical. I'm disgusted with them. Look, and by the way, this is me not. I'm not saying that these cabinet member, these picks that Donald Trump has made are good or bad. I think typically a lot of them have been pretty good. But and by the way, I will get back to that. But I do find it interesting, the process of him bringing in his opponents, basically, people who have been critical of him, like Ted Cruz, Mitt Romney, Carly Fiorina. This seems very typical of Donald Trump showing, first of all, I think this did many things for him. First, he's like, look, I'm able to work with my critics, blah, blah, blah. But he never picked them. So I think this is Donald Trump doing what he said in the past. They come crawling to me like a dog, begging me for money. I think this is all a power trip with Mr. Trump. Sorry, I'm not going to call him Mr. Trump. I apologize. Donald Trump. I don't like the whole Mr. Trump. I'm not going to call him President Trump. Not that, again, just an FYI. I do not do the whole, not my president, not my president. I believe he won the election. I don't believe that it was rigged. But I don't like to call any president so-and-so. I don't call Bush President Bush. I don't call Obama President Obama. I'm not going to call Trump Mr. Trump or President Trump. I mean, on rare occasions, maybe it'll slip out my mouth. But I don't do that because, first of all, these people, I don't revere politicians. I do not hero worship. And though I do think that the office of the presidency is a extremely big honor for someone to get, the honor is on them getting it because it is something we bestow upon you. It's you. We are not your servant. You are our public servant. So, I'm not gonna sit here and revere a public servant. Your job is to work on our behalf. All right. So just when people say, this is one of the things, it's one of my pet peeves, people always say, you got to respect the office, you got to respect the office. Yeah, you got to respect the office, but you don't have to bend the knee. They're public servants. They put on their pants 2 legs at a time, just like you and me. Anyway, that's just my little pet peeve. And no disrespect to the office. Look, it's a very important office, but I would like to see it be less important. I would like to see them have less ability to influence your lives. In reality, you should not really care about who the President of the United States is because they really shouldn't have that much ability to influence your livelihood, your life, and it shouldn't matter, but it does, unfortunately. So, but I digress. Back to some other things that these obstructionist Democrats are now talking about doing here. President Obama to meet, and I say President Obama because it's in the title. So this is an article on The Blaze. President Obama to meet with Democrats to try to save Obamacare from Donald Trump. Okay, so the article is talking about how they're basically trying to come up with ways to put up roadblocks here. I'll go ahead and read some of this. By the way, this article is written by Sarah Lee. President Obama, Barack Obama has scheduled a meeting for next Wednesday with congressional Democrats to discuss saving the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, from President-elect Donald Trump and congressional Republicans who seek to repeal and replace it. Again, there's that repeal and replace. I can't stand that, man. I wish they would just repeal, not replace. I'm telling you right now, we're going to be stuck with Trump care. I've been saying this from the beginning of the election cycle here, from the primaries on. As soon as he started saying repeal and replace, why do we need to replace? We need to repeal. He said, Donald Trump himself has said that the government's going to pay for everybody's health care. He's going to make a deal with existing hospitals. The government's going to pay for it. This is going to turn into Trump care, which I believe, as he outlined, is going to be single-payer health care. It doesn't matter how you try to spin that. If the government is paying for health care by mandating that you have some kind of tax, or mandating that you have health care, you get a penalty at the end of the year for not having health care, which I believe is the only way that Trump care will work, because he wants to have you can keep your kids on the policy until they're age 26, and you cannot be turned down for a pre-existing condition. So in order to have those two things, he's going to have a mandate, according to all the experts that I keep hearing. So these are the quote-unquote good parts of Obamacare, and he's seeking to repeal and replace, but he wants to keep those two things, which means that he's going to have that mandate, which forces employers to provide health care for employees, which, again, that has hugely, or big league, affected the employment sector. Now, it's ridiculous at how many places are only looking for part-time employment. I'm speaking from experience, by the way. You look out in the job market right now, and there's far less than used to be jobs for full-time employees, and all these numbers are cooked. The way that Obama laid out the case about how he's fixed this country, it's mind-boggling. If you heard his speech where he talked about how he's prevented all these terrorist attacks, it hasn't happened on U.S. soil. He apparently forgot about the slew of terrorist attacks that have happened on U.S. soil. They're just not counting them because it's inspired by ISIS, which is ISIS. So every time this man opens his mouth, he lies. But in regards to unemployment, he was claiming that unemployment's at 4.6% and how great he is. Obama is amazing for getting unemployment down to 4.6%. Oh my goodness, these numbers are cooked. That explains why unemployment is at 4.6%, because we have over 90 million Americans who are not participating in the labor force. Out of 320 million Americans, 90 million, more than 90 million, are not working. They're just not working. Either can't find work, unemployed, not working. So, yeah, that's a little bit more than 4.6% there, Mr. Calculator guy, whoever's doing the math there, crunching the numbers. But yet, what they've done is, let's say you lost your full-time job, but you got a part-time job. Now you're employed. Even if you're underemployed, you can't get back what you lost. Also, it's not even factoring in anywhere in there. Now you have to pay. If you're a part-time employee, you lost your full-time employment, which means you lost your benefits that came along with it. Now you got all these exorbitant healthcare costs because Obamacare has doubled and tripled your healthcare premiums. So now you're making less money, and you have higher costs associated with your healthcare. It's unbelievable. Oh, and then not to mention the stock market is at all-time highs. He's talking about how the stock market's at all-time highs. However, QE has artificially inflated the stock market to create a huge, a massive, an unprecedented stock market bubble that will burst. I've been saying probably around 2018. That's my guess. And I believe that the Federal Reserve has been in cahoots with the Obama administration to make it look like everything's fine. But now I don't foresee that cahootness to carry over to the new administration. I don't believe that President Trump is going to see the same kind of thing. I don't think that Janet Yellen is going to try to artificially prop up this economy. I think what is going to happen, and this has been my prediction from the beginning, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't vote for Donald Trump, not only just because I personally think that he's a big government guy. I think he's more like FDR, which he has said he agrees with FDR and he thinks he's one of our greatest presidents. That is a direct quote from him. I think that what is going to happen is this economy is going to collapse and everything's going to get blamed on Donald Trump and capitalism, and this is going to fall apart. I don't know what's going to happen to our nation, but if the government survives at the end of this collapse and we're not in all-out freaking anarchy, I suspect that there will be no more Republicans that will get elected. Now, I know this is a rather bold prediction, and I hope I'm wrong. I honestly hope I'm wrong. I hope that Donald Trump proves me wrong. I hope I'm eating a whole plate of crow in the next 4 years. I would love the taste of that crow because I want him to do a good job. I want him to shrink the size and scope of the government. I want more freedom instead of less. I want the government to shrink and our taxes to shrink with it. I want the government out of your pocket and out of your life. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't see it happening. Especially because Donald Trump has advocated for bigger government policies. Again, he's for minimum wage. He's for single-payer health care. He's essentially repealing and replacing. He's for free daycare, redistribution of wealth. He's promised to preserve entitlement programs. He's a big government guy. He's for eminent domain. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. And he's also not as pro-Second Amendment as all of his supporters that I've talked to about this seem to think. Again, he's for not just restricting your Second Amendment rights if you're on a no-fly list, a terror watch list. He's for restricting your due process because he thinks that if you're put on this list, you should be denied a fundamental human right to bear arms, to defend yourself. Without any due process. No process. You can't even know why you're on the list, who put you on the list, who said that you should be on the list. You can't face your accuser. These are rights enshrined in our Bill of Rights. And there has to be a process for it, but yet there's not. I think it was one of the Kennedys. I can't recall which one. Definitely not John Kennedy. I think it's Robert Kennedy, I believe, that was put on the no-fly list. It took him 6 months to get off the list, and lots of money. This guy had clout. This guy was a politician. You think it's going to be easy for you or I to get off of this list? I think not. And how soon, even if you trust the Trump administration, how soon until someone like Obama gets into office and starts using this list to start coming after your rights, to start chilling your rights? They may not be able to, because this is what the government does, folks. It grows, and it twists and perverts things that it used to do into something vastly different. So, look at what Obama tried to do with Social Security, the Social Security Administration. If you had somebody else set up to be your what do they call that? I can't remember. To basically act upon your behalf for Social Security purposes or for your medical decisions. If that is something that you had going, the Obama administration was trying to deny you the right to bear arms. Through that, they won't come after the Second Amendment because they know they'll lose. They cannot repeal the Second Amendment. They know they don't have the support for that, and frankly, I think they just have abandoned that cause, which is the only cause that they should legitimately be pursuing, is to actually repeal the Second Amendment if they don't like it so much. Rather than just try to skirt it and bite around the edges like they've been doing, this is what they do. So do not make the mistake of supporting banning people from having firearms or being able to buy firearms if they're on a no-fly list, a terror watch list. Because how soon until the next Obama gets put into office? How soon until the next Hillary Clinton gets put into office? And by the way, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both agreed on this issue. So I wasn't trying to go into a Trump bashing moment. I'm putting it out there. So back to the article, the whole reason why I went into this here. I've digressed a couple times here. Donald Trump wants to he's seeking to repeal and replace this, the Obamacare, and Obama's basically trying to meet with the Democrats to save it. The article continues. Obama's signature healthcare legislation has been criticized almost since its passage in 2010 as not providing affordable healthcare coverage and, in fact, driving up the cost of premiums. It has also been fraught with technical difficulties and scandals, suggesting that designers knew it would never work, but had to implement it to get the single-payer healthcare option, which, again, I argue that's what Trump's going to be getting. Trump has vowed to repeal the law and called it a disaster. He also nominated vocal critic of the law, Representative Tom Price, from Republican from Georgia, to the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. This has led congressional Democrats to worry that their GOP colleagues will make good on the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's call to make repealing and replacing Obamacare step one in the GOP agenda this year. Obama's meeting comes just one day after Congress reconvenes, and the Democrats have already participated in a conference call to discuss protecting Obamacare and other entitlement programs, Fox News reports. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, California, last week told fellow Democrats that they stand ready to fight vigorously for America's hardworking families against such efforts, including those by incoming Republican President Donald Trump, who has called Obamacare a disaster and vowed, if elected, to repeal the law, the 2010 law. So, again, who's the obstructionist now? I will remind Miss Pelosi that elections have consequences. We'll be right back after this break, folks. When we come back, we're going to dive right into the feature topics. I want to talk about Russia's hacking. What did they hack? And no, it was not the election. We'll be right back after this break, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Have you visited the On The Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On The Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
We're back. So, I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that we are streaming the first hour of the program over at the 405media.com. Please check them out at the 405media.com. If you're over there listening to us, we do a 2 to 3 hour show every Sunday, and you can pick up the rest of the show, the next 2 hours, at OnTheMoveShow.com. You can also get us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. And if you're listening to the show, I would really love it. I would appreciate it so much if you would go over to Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow and follow us, because that'll help us analytically. The more people that are following us, the more people that can find us in search results, and that just makes us look bigger and better and all that stuff. And it really helps. It really does, because the more people that, or the more times we show up in search results, the bigger the show is, the more people that'll find us, and you're helping spread the message of liberty, and that means a lot. So I would appreciate that. Again, that's Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Anyway, also, I should mention youthrevolt.org. Please check them out. We also simulcast the show over there as well. They're doing great things, and please check them out, youthrevolt.org. All right, folks, moving into our featured topics. I promised we'd talk about Russian hacking, so we're going to. So what exactly did Russia hack? Because I've been hearing a lot of confused people talking about like Russia hacked the election systems, and that did not happen. Surprise. If you were not aware of that, surprise, they did not hack the election systems. Here's an article on the Daily Caller, dailycaller.com, written by Rachel Stoltzfus. I think I got that right. Democrats can shout, Russia hacked the election until they're blue in the face, but the fact remains that John Podesta wasn't hacked, and neither was the Democratic National Committee. Both Podesta and the DNC were duped into opening the front door to their email accounts by revealing their password information to attackers, which is a far cry from the forced penetration of their accounts suggested by the term hack. The simplicity of the attack doesn't make the results less devastating, but it does something to deflate the notion that Russia pulled off some kind of wildly sophisticated and dangerous attack. Here's how the Podesta hack happened. He received a spear phishing email designed to look like official communication from Google notifying him someone had tried to change his password. Google stopped this sign-in attempt, the email read. You should change your password immediately. The bottom of the email included a link labeled Change Password designed to fool the reader into giving away their password. A Clinton campaign aide with access to Podesta's account read the email and forwarded it to the IT aide, Charles Delavan, who mistakenly replied to the email that the email was legitimate and instructed the aide to change his password. This is a legitimate email, Delavan wrote to the aide, Sarah Latham, along with a link to a legitimate Google page to make the change. John needs to change his password immediately. Latham then emailed another aide, Mila Fisher, and asked her to change the password. One of them clicked on the phishing email link to make the change, which led them to a fake page and provided the attacker with Podesta's password. Delavan told the New York Times he is still haunted by the mistake that led to the release of tens of thousands of Podesta's emails. By some accounts, cost the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton the election. The campaign had been the target of dozens of similar phishing emails at the time, Delavan said, and he knew this email was one of them. He accidentally typed legitimate instead of illegitimate, a mistake he says has plagued him. Ooh, that would be that'd be a stinger, wouldn't it? You meant to type illegitimate, and it types legitimate. I wonder if he did this on the phone, and it was like one of those autocorrect things. Freaking autocorrect, man! It gets me every time. I'm like, hey, go ahead and come by the house. I got some food, and it's like, I hate your face, and I've slapped your dog or something. Anyway, okay, so the article continues. The DNC was hit by the same type of email, and in the same way gave attackers access to a trove of emails that led to the resignation of Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz as DNC chair. So, yeah, that was kind of funny. If you missed that, go check that story out. Neither attack was particularly complicated, in part because, as it turns out, a complicated attack wasn't necessary to penetrate to the accounts. They must have really lax security. This seems to be a trend in the Democrat Party here. As the technology director at the DNC has acknowledged, the nonprofit didn't want to devote all of its resources to cybersecurity, although he and his bosses were fully aware it would be targets for hackers. There was never enough money to do everything we needed to do, Andrew Brown told the New York Times regarding the decision that now appears so costly. Yeah, I will say. Russia didn't hack into their accounts, and Russia didn't hack into Podesta's accounts, and Russia certainly didn't hack the election, as so many media outlets are suggesting. Podesta and the DNC were simply duped, and I will add, this is me speaking, that they were extremely careless. Extremely careless. They did not take the precautions that would have been necessary for their cybersecurity, and they knew they were first of all, they knew they were vulnerable, and they did nothing about it. They did nothing about it. They knew they were going to be a target, and they knew they were vulnerable. That should have been enough to light a fire under the butts, but no fire came to fruition. So, let's speak about this narrative that Russia hacked the election. Yes, I would consider this hacking. I mean, you sent some phishing emails. They give you your password. I'm going to go ahead and say, I think we're really, being dishonest by not calling that hacking. I think they hacked, but it wasn't the election. Now, who's to blame? Is it Russia? Yes, Russia. Russia is to blame. Bad Russia. Bad Russia. Not our friend, FYI. Don't be under the assumption that just because they're releasing information about your political opponents, the Democrats, if you consider them so, that Russia is suddenly on your side. Russia is on Russia's side. Putin is only on Putin's side. He's not even on the Russian people's side. He is an autocrat, a kleptocrat. He's been stealing money, the wealth of the Russian people. He's arguably, and probably very likely, the most wealthy man in the world because he's been stealing his entire nation's wealth. Which is something, by the way, that we'll get into in a little bit here about what the Obama administration can do in response to this. But Putin has been a very shady fellow, so he's not your friend. They are to blame. They are hacking. They are, engaging in espionage, counter-espionage, as are we, the United States. And every other major nation in the world is doing the same thing. So it's kind of hard to go tisk Russia when we're doing the same damn thing. We do it all the time, and we got caught with our hand in the cookie jar with Germany not too long ago. I don't know if you all remember this, but we not only spy on foreign nations, we spy on our own people. So our government can't go around acting like they're all holier than thou. All right, it's like when it would be like your kids. Saying that they didn't eat any cookies when they have cookie crumbs all over their face. All right? Did you eat any cookies? No. Got chocolate all over their hands, cookie crumbs all over their face. There's a trail of cookie crumbs leading to their room, on their bed. Look, we know you ate the cookies. All right? We're on to you. You can't come at us from a holier than thou. But I will say, screw you, Russia. All right? Stay out of our stuff, all right? Don't come after our I don't care. This is the one time I'm going to back the Democrats. Get the hell off of the Democrats' computers. Quit hacking anybody in the United States. As far as I'm concerned, we catch you, it's on like Donkey Kong. That's all I'm saying, all right? Now, granted, am I happy that we have this information? Yeah. Granted, am I happy that, or does it confirm a lot of the things that I already knew about the Democrats already? Yeah, it did. Did it confirm a lot of the things about Hillary Clinton that I already knew and I had been saying was likely happening? Yeah, it did. But still, screw you, Russia. Screw you. All right? That's all I'm saying. I don't want any foreign nation hacking into our stuff. All right? As far as I'm concerned, we're all Americans. Stay out. All right, we need to be a unified front on that. At no point can it be okay for a foreign nation to start hacking our stuff in an attempt to influence the election, which I believe, again, is what they were trying to do. I don't believe that they succeeded in influencing the election. I don't think that was the deciding factor. The deciding factor was the DNC's actions and inactions. First of all, Podesta and the DNC, the emails that they were exchanging were incredibly incriminating because they were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. Amazing. And Hillary Clinton, all of that scandal, the email server scandal, well, let me tell you, she was doing things she wasn't supposed to be doing. That's why it became a scandal. You can't blame the whistleblower for the scandal. Again, Russia was wrong by hacking, but it's not Russia's fault that they had this incriminating information on there. It's the DNC. It is their action. Clinton lost because she was a corrupt, inept, and very weak candidate. Now, to the featured topics here, the left's blame game on the election. First of all, they're like, the Electoral College is so unfair. Even though the Electoral College is not unfair, it's actually very fair because it gives states who don't have big populations a voice. Otherwise, no one else or no candidates would go in Wyoming and try to run for president over there. No one would go in federal elections to places that have small population. You would just focus on the big population center like California, New York, Texas, Florida, and that would be it. So I believe that's extremely fair, and so did our founders. And then the whole thing, the Electoral College is so undemocratic. Yeah, it is. Because we're not a democracy, and I'm freaking tired of y'all saying we are. Because we're not. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. We have some democratic tendencies in some states because there's such a thing as states' rights. They have direct democracy and like citizen initiative ballots and things like that. But we're not a democracy. Make no mistake. We are a republic. We're a constitutional republic. That's what our founders set us up to be, as evidenced by the Electoral College. So, okay. Now, again, the left blaming the election results on Russia. Again, they need to be looking inward. Instead of blaming other people for their weak candidate, their corruption, and that being exposed, they should look inward. Don't blame Russia. Blame yourself. Now, if you could blame somebody, they blame Director Comey. I believe that his reopening of the Clinton investigation could have had an influence. I definitely think that had a bigger influence than Russia. But let me just point out here that, again, you need to look inward. Hillary, the DNC, Podesta. You need to look inward. Why did Director Comey open up the investigation in the first place? Why did he reopen it? It was because of your conduct. The things that you were doing, DNC, Hillary Clinton, Podesta, and the things that you failed to do, like, cybersecurity, securing your network, those kind of things. You failed to do that, and you were corrupt, and you got caught. You were extremely careless, as Director Comey says, with your email, with your cybersecurity, with classified, secret, top secret information. Oh, and by the way, there's something above top secret. It's called special access. They were careless with that too. So only a few people have access to that kind of stuff, and they were careless with that as well. Putting the lives of Americans in jeopardy. Putting our national security in jeopardy. These people should be in jail, not running for public office, but I digress. Let's stop blaming other people and start looking inward and taking, what's this thing called that I always talk about and the Democrats don't seem to understand? Oh, yeah, personal responsibility. Personal friggin' responsibility. Take it for yourself. So, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, I want to continue talking about this Russian hacking scandal. And you guys don't want to go anywhere. We got a lot more on this. We'll be right back after this break.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get 10% discount on all graphic design services.
This is Dan Sandini of DaylightDisinfectant.com, citizen journalist, friend of the late Andrew Breitbart, and cohort of James O'Keefe. I listen to On the Move with Mac Worley because the only time he's wrong is when he disagrees with me.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Welcome to On the Move.
I love this throwback here. This is, if you're not familiar, this is our original intro song, and it's what we do on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/OnTheMoveShow. A good friend of mine made this this audio for me, this little music. Really talented guy. I'll let him remain nameless here. But anyway, for those of you out there, if you want to read the rest of Mark Watkins' article, I put it on our Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. So check that out. Please feel free to share it out. Let Mark know what you think about it. He does a lot of good work. So anyway, let's go back into what we were talking about with the Russian hacking scandal. So this is again, they did not hack the election. There's absolutely zero evidence to suggest that they actually hacked election systems. Here's a clip. This is from CNN.com. It's got John McCain being interviewed by one of CNN's pundits. I can't remember this guy's name, but he's talking about this exact thing. Here's a clip. It's loading. This always happens.
Hillary Clinton spoke to her donors on Thursday night in New York City. She sought to explain the election's outcome. She pointed the finger at Putin. Take a listen.
Vladimir Putin himself directed the covert cyber attacks against our electoral system, against our democracy, apparently because he has a personal beef against me.
I've heard some commentators criticize Clinton for saying that Putin directed cyber attacks against, quote, the electoral system, suggesting that she's misleading voters about what happened, that it sounds like she's saying the voting machines themselves were attacked. Do you agree with that criticism? And what do you make of her overall argument?
I have seen no evidence that the voting machines were tampered with. I haven't seen no evidence that the election would have been different. But that doesn't change the fact that the Russians and others, Chinese to a lesser degree, have been able to interfere with our electoral process. Whether how serious it is and whether it would have affected the outcome of the election or not is the reason why we need to have a select committee. Jake, the responsibilities for cyber is spread over about 4 different committees in the Senate, and each doing their own thing, frankly, is not going to be the most efficient way of arriving at a conclusion. This is serious business. If they're able to harm the electoral process, then they destroy democracy, which is based on free and fair elections.
And I would agree with that. I just don't believe that. First of all, there is any evidence whatsoever that they hacked any machines, any voting machines at all. First of all, these are decentralized, which is important. First of all, you're going to continue to hear on the left, they've talked about, I have already heard in the past, them talking about trying to centralize, to make it under federal purview of these election systems, which is a terrible idea. Keeping it decentralized keeps it safer. If they hack one machine, that's not as big of a deal. If they hack an entire network that's centralized and all put together in the same thing, so it's more vulnerable. It's only one thing, one target to be hacked. If you spread out, they got to hack more to actually influence the election. So again, even though there is no evidence to suggest that the Russians hacked any voting machines, here's a poll, hotair.com, YouGov poll. Let's see here. Let me see if I can. I'll go straight to the source here. I won't go to Hot Air. I don't like this source. Okay. Let me see if I can find exactly. I should have went here at the beginning. Vote fraud. Do you think this statement true? This is not helpful here. Let me go back to Hot Air. Unfortunately, I don't have time to unpack everything on that article. So anyway, YouGov poll, 52% of Democrats believe Russia tampered with the vote totals to get Donald Trump elected. 52%. And there's no doubt with Hillary Clinton saying what we just played here. I'll play that clip again. If you can hear Hillary Clinton essentially saying that Russia actually hacked the election systems.
Hillary Clinton spoke to her donors on Thursday night in New York City. She sought to explain the election's outcome. She pointed the finger at Putin. Take a listen.
Vladimir Putin himself directed the covert cyber attacks against our electoral system.
See, again, she says electoral system, not the DNC, not Podesta's emails. She says the electoral systems. There's a huge difference between that. So again, that is why this episode is titled Russia Didn't Hack the Election. All they did was hack private email servers. Okay? So that would be like them hacking my email, your email. That is not the same thing as them hacking the election systems. Okay? Let's make that very clear distinction. Again, it's a really rude move, Russia, to be hacking, period. To be phishing and scamming and trying to get into our computer systems. I really don't approve of that, and I don't trust Russia. Again, they're not our friends, but they did not hack the election systems. Now, did they potentially influence the election? Of course they probably influenced it in some way, just like you and I would influence the election by talking. The way I'm influencing the election every Sunday when I was talking, I was influencing in some way. Maybe not. Because honestly, I don't think that we got a lot of individuals have a big enough microphone to change the election results. People are free thinking individuals. You have the ability to process and critically think. So again, how much did Russia really influence the election? We'll never know. How much did anything influence the election? And it's not a crime to influence an election. Donald Trump influenced the election. Hillary Clinton influenced the election. Obama influenced the election. And the United States tries to influence elections all around the world. This is what we do. Everybody tries to influence things to their own benefit. That's not illegal. That's not a crime. It may be a jerk thing to do, may not be very cool, especially if it involves hacking, but there's a slight difference. One I feel it is important to differentiate between influencing and hacking election systems. Okay? Have we covered that enough? I just want to be clear. If anybody disagrees with me on this, by the way, I'm happy to have a polite conversation with you. The number of the show is 360-450-5625. 360-450-5625. You can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. Okay, so why, oh why, is the media purposefully misleading the public about the Russian hacking scandal? Well, obviously, they're trying to undermine the legitimacy of this election. This is their flailing, kicking, and screaming, blaming everybody under the sun, the Electoral College, Russia, Director Comey, blah, 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 blah. They're coming up with every excuse of why their very, very unpopular candidate, whose three most common words used to describe her were liar, untrustworthy, and dishonest. Wow. Liar, untrustworthy, dishonest. I would throw in corrupt. That's just me. Why was she? Why did she lose? Because of that. Because people didn't trust her. People thought she was unscrupulous, which she was. Again, I argue the most corrupt politician in the United States history. I think she makes Richard Nixon look like a freaking Boy Scout. So I think the people were on to her. And look, I'm not on this like Fox News thing where I'm noticing a lot of people on Fox News are like, there's a tide of momentum from Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump is particularly popular either. Again, the votes, he didn't win the popular vote. And look, I'm not saying that undermines his legitimacy, but he didn't win the popular vote. So that's important to talk about. Hillary, by the way, squandered some of her money. She spent a lot of money in, I believe, Louisiana to rack up the popular vote there. I think that also accounts for it. But, I mean, Democrat strongholds like California, New York, those places are hugely populated. So, right off the bat, they have millions and millions of votes just for free. It's ridiculous how many people are in these states that are Democrats. These are huge strongholds. I personally don't think that there was this huge Make America Great Again tide that surged across the nation. I think Donald Trump was a mediocre candidate as far as popularity, and honestly, I believe that he won because Hillary Clinton was so bad, not because he was particularly great. But that's just my opinion, and I know a lot of you out there are probably going to disagree with me. I know a lot of you out there probably support Donald Trump, and that's the beauty of America. We can disagree about these things, all right? And again, I hope I'm wrong about where I think Donald Trump is ideologically. I think that he tends to lean towards big government solutions rather than individual responsibility and small government. I think that he's a big government statist. Honestly, but I hope that the people he's surrounding himself can reel him in and get him to get on board with this whole thing, libertarianism and conservatism. I hope. I don't know what the likelihood of that is, though. So, let's move on. Let's move on to something else here. I want to talk, first of all, we're going to talk about Russia here again, but and remember, I told you about how the Obama administration, in the past, I've mentioned how they declared cyber war on Russia. They're going to respond in kind to Vladimir Putin for the hacking. We're going to get into that. Don't let me forget that, gang. But I want to mention, first of all, how Obama has lied. Obama made a promise when Donald Trump got elected. Obama promised to help make this transition smooth. He said that was his number one priority. Here's Obama promising just that.
Okay. Well, I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump. It was wide-ranging. We talked about some of the organizational issues in setting up White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful.
Yeah. Okay, so that was what he said. He wanted to make the transition successful, or to ensure that to make the transition smooth, essentially, I'm paraphrasing now, so that Donald Trump can be successful. And what does he do? He starts to do things, in my opinion, could be argued as a way to box Donald Trump into a corner, making very big, game-changing foreign policy decisions in the last few weeks of his presidency. First of all, the whole Russian hacking thing, declaring war on Russia, and then he goes so far as to start expelling diplomats, Russian diplomats. Here is an article on CNN talking about just that. Now, there's a clip that's about to play on this, so let me pause this once it comes up here. This is what happens, by the way, on CNN. CNN articles, they have these autoplay clips, and they take like 30 seconds to freaking load. This is a wonky site. I don't like how the site is put together. Anyway, enough of me complaining about the Communist News Network's website. This article is titled, Putin, Russia Won't Expel U.S. Diplomats. So, the article reads, and first, this is written by Laura Smith-Spark and Matthew Chance. Article is dated Friday, December 30th, 2016. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Friday that Moscow will not expel American diplomats in response to the U.S. sanctions against Russia. So, again, the Obama administration, in the last few weeks, putting sanctions on Russia and expelling their diplomats from the United States. Putin said he will not pursue irresponsible kitchen diplomacy. And what does that even mean, by the way? Kitchen diplomacy? Does anybody know? If you do, hit me up on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. I don't even know what that means. Or call 360-450-5625. 360-450-5625. Kitchen diplomacy. I don't know. Putin would not pursue irresponsible kitchen diplomacy and would instead attempt to rebuild relations with Washington after the inauguration of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. However, Putin said that Russia reserved the right to respond to the new U.S. sanctions, which included the expulsion of 35 diplomats from the United States. The Obama administration said the measures were in response to allegations that Russia had meddled in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Further steps to restore Russian-U.S. relations based on the policies of the Trump administration will be undertaken, a Kremlin statement said. So, This is very interesting, I think, here, that the Obama administration, one side of their face, said they're going to try to make things smooth for Trump and make sure that he'll be a success, and then on the other side, they're changing foreign policy, they're expelling Russian diplomats, trying to box Donald Trump into a corner on this issue. I don't know how this is going to play, but I do think that Vladimir Putin definitely outplayed the Obama administration, essentially making him look useless and inert. Very, very, very interesting the way that he played this. He's basically just ignoring what Obama did. He's like, oh, you know what? You're going to kick out my guys? Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'll wait until your replacement comes in. You don't really matter. So this is basically him, demasculating Obama, saying that you don't really matter. You're irrelevant. I'll just wait you out. And yeah, I think this was a good move, honestly. And he even invited the diplomats' children, the American diplomats' children, to the Kremlin to celebrate the holiday and the New Year, I think. And it's funny. Imagine these kids going into the Kremlin there. Hopefully, they're not taking their electronic devices in there. I have a feeling that wouldn't work out so well if they did. I don't think the Russians can be trusted. So Vladimir Putin's like, hey, I see you like to play a lot of solitaire. Are you lonely? You want maybe we have some afternoon delight, huh? I'm sorry. That's terrible. All right. Anyway, so let's see here. What do we got next? Oh, yes. We were talking about the lies coming from the Obama administration. And again, they said that they're going to make things smooth, and then they don't. They try to basically throw up roadblocks. And let's see, we got another big story, huge story that came out. The UN was voting against the Israeli settlements, and this is a crazy story. The United States abstained from voting in the Security Council meeting here. So let me go ahead and bring up the article here. This is on Bloomberg.com. U.S. abstains from UN vote criticizing Israeli settlements. And it's not gonna. It's because I got a pop-up blocker now. It's got something up on here. I gotta wait. There we go. All right. Okay. The Obama. Oh, let me read everything out here. This article is written by Nafisa Saeed and David Weiner, December 23rd, 2016, and updated on the same day. So the Obama administration abstained from voting Friday on the UN Security Council resolution critical of Israel's settlements in the West Bank, drawing accusations from the Israeli government that Washington had abandoned its closest Middle East ally and dealt a blow to the chances of peace talks with the Palestinians. The resolution, which could have been vetoed by the United States, declared Israeli settlements illegal under international law and demanded that the country cease construction in the West Bank and other territories captured in the 1967 Mideast War. Samantha Power, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, defended the move to abstain, saying one cannot champion both settlements and a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The settlement problem has gotten so much worse, Power said after the vote, which has been delayed from Thursday. She added that our vote today does not diminish the country's steadfast commitment to Israel. The decision to abstain highlighted the increasingly frayed relationship between the Obama administration and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Netanyahu's office, in a statement after the veto, rejected the resolution and said the Obama administration secretly plotted to undermine Israel by not vetoing the proposal. The White House rejected the accusation. The Obama administration not only failed to protect Israel against this gang-up at the UN, it colluded with it behind the scenes, Netanyahu's office said in a statement. Following the vote, Israel recalled its ambassadors to New Zealand and Senegal, two of the co-sponsors of the resolution, for consultation and canceled aid programs to Senegal. Netanyahu's office said in a text message, a planned visit to Israel by Senegalese foreign minister was also canceled. Ben Rhodes, the deputy national security advisor, said the continued expansion of the Israeli settlements gave the U.S. little choice. Prime Minister Netanyahu had the opportunity to pursue policies that would have led to a different outcome today. Rhodes told reporters on a conference call, "We hear the words about a two-state solution, and then we see the actions that are making the two-state solution out of reach." Yeah, like Palestinians wanting to kill Israelis. That's a problem, right? Again, if Israel decided to just lay down its arms and said, you know what, we're going to declare peace. Let's say they pulled like a page out of Obama's textbook, like how Obama just decided to end the war in Iraq. Yay, the war's over. Peace in the region. Peace in the Middle East. Then ISIS takes over, right? Yeah, right. Okay, so if let's say Benjamin Netanyahu decided to just take a page out of Obama's textbook and just pull out all of his lay his guns on the ground and declare peace in the region, Israel, they would be in this massive wave of peace in the Middle East, right? No, in fact, Israel would be wiped off the map. Israel would die. Every Israeli would be killed. Their heads would be sawed off. It would be like on video on the interwebs, and you would see ISIS and the Palestinians out there killing, just annihilating. It would be genocide against these Jews. And I do believe that they do have a right to be alive. The Jewish people do have a right to be alive. Now, let's say if the Palestinians lay down their arms and decided they weren't going to, run people down with cars and then get out and stab them with butcher knives, and they stopped, suicide bombing and attacking innocent civilians and mortaring them from Gaza. Yeah, if all that stopped, there would be peace. But not the other way around, because one side has a belief that it is okay to kill innocent people, and it considers another side occupiers, even though they're not. And even if they were, let's also point out, okay, this whole thing about occupied territory, the occupied territory of the West Bank, I'm over it. I'm done with it. And honestly, if I was Israel, and by the way, I support Israel in this matter, I believe it's their territory. I believe they have a right to do whatever the hell they want on that territory. They weren't the ones that started the war. They got attacked, and guess what? They got attacked by this little postage stamp of a nation. Got attacked by so many freaking people in the Middle East. And then guess what happened? They won. They won, and not only did they win the battles at hand, but they expanded the territory. They took territory back from the aggressors who wanted to wipe them off the map. This Palestinian conflict, and that's what it is. It's not an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's a Palestinian conflict, and it's all of it is anti-Semitism. That's all it is. And if you disagree with me, well then, hey, I will argue that I don't think you're very educated on the topic. And if you disagree with me, that's cool. But the point is, they have the territory. They have it now. They were attacked. And now they have the territory. Now, you could argue that's occupied territory, yada, yada, yada. But, there was no Palestine at that time. So it's not. But secondly, let's just point out, all right, all territory in the world belongs to somebody else. All right? So are you advocating for the original people who owned every piece of territory to get that territory back? Is that what you're advocating for? Because if not, you're not being logically consistent. And if you are advocating for that, let's say, for example, we as Americans, we give our land back to the Native Americans, okay? To the Indians. We give it back to them. Well, let's point out who we're going to give it back to, because they had been warring tribe against tribe and taking territory over from each other. This had been going on from the beginning of their cultures. So who has the rightful claim to the land? I argue the people that own it, the people that are in possession of the land. You can't start going back historically and looking at what happened 70, 80, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 years ago. Who owns it today? Who's alive today owns the land? And if they own it now, they have a right to defend it. That's what I'm saying. You have a right to defend your territory. And if somebody, look, if a neighboring country, let's say Canada, decided to get froggy and like, hey, we're going to come up there and we're going to take your land, eh? And I'd be like, look, Canada, we're about to take your crap. That's what I would do, because you are the aggressor. All right? That's all I'm saying. If a country tries to invade and you need to take some territory of theirs in order to secure a bit of land, between you and them, you're not conquering their entire nation. Although I think the argument could be made that if they're the aggressor, you might have the right to do that. I'm not for that. I don't support that. But like I said, I think the argument could be made. I'm just not I don't really like the whole empire building thing, the whole conquering of your neighbors. That's not really my thing. Again, I'm not even for any government at all. I honestly, in a perfect world, I would love to see no government. No government at all. And people just free to do whatever they want. But I think that the way humanity is, our nature, human nature, is to look for a leader, to collectivize, and then to use power against other people. To use power against people that we think we can use power and get away with it against. So, again, the tyranny of the majority thinking that they can take away from the little guy or take away from one individual because they think it's unfair how much they have and they want to forcibly redistribute that. Again, this is why I support small government, because we're not in that perfect world. We haven't evolved as a species. We are always going to continue to fight each other, to want to steal from each other, to use force against one another. The non-aggression principle is not something inherently inside everyone. People may inherently want to do that, may think it's the right thing to do, but not everybody follows it. And certainly a lot of people forget that it's wrong to hurt other people and to take their stuff, even if a majority of you agree that it's okay to hurt someone else and to take their stuff. They get confused. They don't understand that hiring somebody or electing somebody to do something that you can't do is still wrong. It's still wrong. If it's immoral for you to do it, it's immoral to hire someone else to do it or to elect someone else to do it. It's immoral. All rights start at the individual level. But again, this is why I support small government and not no government. I would love no government, but we don't live in that kind of world. And even if we abolished our government, we're not going to be able to abolish every government. That would take a change on a philosophical level of every single human on the planet. And I contend that even if it did happen, even if everybody decided that they're going to abolish their government tomorrow, I suspect that it wouldn't be long before a new government sprang up. Because that's just human nature. That's what I argue anyway. Anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk more about this UN abstaining, or the U.S. abstaining from the UN vote here. So you guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign. Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Appreciate y'all sticking with us. All right, if you have anything on your mind, give us a call. The number of the show, 360-450-5625, 360-450-5625. Get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. Joseph in the chat room on Spreaker, when in response to me asking, so why is the media purposefully misleading the public about the Russian hacking scandal, he says to control their opinion. I would agree. Again, it's all about propaganda. Just like they're talking about this is seriously, we're talking about these things now, and this is blowing me away. They're talking about essentially having a government agency decide what the truth is on the internet. So it's so Orwellian. You've read 1984. This is the Ministry of Truth, which really becomes a ministry of propaganda. We cannot allow the federal government, any government, to have this kind of influence. We can't allow it. Everything the government touches is perverted. It's twisted. It's corrupted. This is why I advocate for freedom. Because every law, unless it's a law counteracting another law, is taking away liberty. Every single law. So I want to have the most liberty possible. I want the least amount of government in your life. The only thing I want a government to do is to protect you. And I don't mean to protect you like have a policeman come by and save your life. I want the government to prevent people from using force against you, from prevent other people from violating the non-aggression principle. That's all I want from that. And, again, as far as the federal government should do very little very little. It honestly, okay, national defense, obviously, dealing with other nations in the form of treaties, settling interstate disputes. That's really immigration. That's about it. There's really only 4 or 5 things that the federal government should actually be doing. But yeah, it's expanded so far. It regulates literally everything in our lives. Everything. Look around your room. I made this analogy before, but look around your room. Wherever you are right now, wherever you're sitting, standing, driving, whatever you're doing, look at everything around you. It's all federally regulated. Every single item you have has had a stamp of approval from the federal government at some point. Everything. Whether or not it's from the material that it took to process it, or how it was transported to you, the production of it, or the sale, it's all federally regulated in some way. Isn't that astounding? The federal government, this behemoth, this leviathan, it's so big. It's in every single aspect of your life, and all I'm saying is that it needs to be less prevalent. The more it's out of your life, the more freedom you're going to have. And I was going to say I don't understand, but I do. I do understand. I understand exactly why people advocate for the government, because they think it's a solution, and they haven't thought about things, or maybe they're afraid, or they're emotional, or maybe they legitimately have an agenda that they want to push. Maybe they legitimately think that the government is a better solution. Maybe they're big bleeding hearts that just want to help people. But I'm telling you right now, the federal government does not help you. The federal government only hurts you. That's why we need to have as little federal government as possible, as little government at all possible. The only thing it should be able to do is to prevent people from hurting others and taking their stuff. That's it. That's why this government was created, to protect life, liberty, and property. So it shouldn't be able to be used against life, liberty, and property. Those are the reasons why it was created. It would go against the whole reason why it was created in the first place. Doesn't make any sense. But I digress. So let's get back to this U.S. abstaining from the Israeli settlement vote. They did not participate in that vote. And again, this is you remember the Obama administration? They said this.
Okay. Well, I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump. It was wide-ranging. We talked about some of the organizational issues in setting up the White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful.
Okay, so again, they talked about foreign policy. This is one of the things they actually talked about. He said they talked about. And he said over the next 2 months, he was going to try to do things to make the transition successful. And he's literally making massive changes to foreign policy, changing what we've done, and really trying to back Donald Trump into a corner. But Vladimir Putin kind of outplayed Obama in this instance, and he's just going to wait. He's not going to respond in kind. And it's amateur hour here for the president. You know, I just don't get it. Obama, this guy claims to be the smartest thing ever. You know, he's like, you know, and this is why. This is the argument that we've been getting from the left forever. Oh, you know, we just had stupid people doing these things before. That's why socialism and communism has always historically ended in millions and millions of dead people. But you know, now we got the smart people making the smart decisions. This again, it's amateur hour here at the White House. All right, I can't wait until this guy's out of office. I just can't freaking wait. When it comes to the Iran nuclear deal, where we're essentially greenlighting the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon. Oh yeah, that's going to work out, and we're freaking out all of our allies in the region. And you know, we say, hey, you know what? I tell you what. How about instead of you opposing this, and just to calm you down a little bit, we're just going to throw gobs and gobs of guns and weaponry at you. We're just going to throw all sorts of sophisticated technology at you, so that you can defend yourself if Iran decides to go nuclear, literally, which they are going to. If we don't do something about it. But honestly, I do not see Israel letting that happen. Whether or not we're prepared to act against them, which I think we would, and it's a conversation for another day of if we should, if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. I believe they'll use it, and I don't believe that they have a right to have a nuclear weapon. I'll go ahead and talk about this. I've made this analogy before. I might as well. We're off in the weeds. Why not? If you're in a dark alley with somebody, all right, and this is coming from a proponent of gun rights, of a right to be armed, all right? I believe everybody has a right to be armed. If you're in a dark alley with somebody, and this somebody has already threatened to kill you, this person said they're going to shoot you 100 times, and blah, 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 blah. They're making threats against your life. And there is a gun on the ground between you and them. They are not armed, but they are saying that they're going to pick that gun up and shoot you with it. And you're armed. Do you stop them from picking up that gun? Do you stop them? But Mac, don't they have a right to be armed? Of course they do. Of course they have a right to be armed. But if you're threatening to shoot me with a gun, I'm not going to allow you to pick that gun up. I don't care what rights you have to have that gun. All right, you have a right to be armed away from me at that point because I feel threatened for my life, my safety. I'm not going to allow you to pick up that gun. This is the same scenario. Iran, I wouldn't have any problem with them having nuclear technology if they didn't pose a threat to us, if they weren't continually saying death to America, death to Israel. If it's part of some of the tenets of their beliefs, if they didn't believe that they had to bring about setting the world on fire in order to hasten the return of essentially their God. So, yes, I don't believe that Iran has a right to be armed with nuclear weapons. In an ideal world, sure, but this isn't, again, not an ideal world. There are evil people out there. Not everybody has this in their heart, but there are so many out there that want to kill us, that want to do harm to us, want to attack our way of life. There are lots of them out there. The world is not made out of cupcakes and rainbows. There's a lot of very, very bad people. This is why I believe in the right to defend yourself and why I believe that we need minimal government. Just enough to keep the bad guys at bay by using our collective force that we're doing on our own free will. This is why I believe in voluntary taxes. I think most people probably aren't going to agree with me on that. Well, actually, I think a lot of people would love to have the choice of paying their taxes. And I contend that many people, including myself, would willingly pay it in order to continue to get services that they want, like a military, for example. I would gladly donate to specific areas of government that I want. We should be able to fill out a form. Okay, I'll give $100 to this part of the government. I'll give $20 to that. I'll give $0 to that. We should be able to go down a list and decide what we want to fund. That way it doesn't matter. This would be another check and a balance. It doesn't matter what the government does. It doesn't matter what Congress passes, what laws they pass. We as the people who are consenting to what our government is doing are consenting with our dollars and our votes. This is a check and a balance. That's what I argue. I know a lot of people probably don't take that idea seriously. I do. I think that is another check and a balance that needs to be added. And FYI, I'll just point out another check and a balance that I thought would be great. Instead of giving unlimited power essentially to one man, I think that we should have 3 co-equal presidents of the United States. That is my opinion. But I digress. Anyway, so let's talk more about this whole UN thing. All right. So Obama promised to make this whole transition smooth. He said that they even spoke about foreign policy, and yet he's making massive foreign policy changes, and it's just unbelievable to me at how he turned his back on the Israelis. Here's Benjamin Netanyahu, disgusted with this administration, talking about it.
Over decades, American administrations and Israeli governments have disagreed about settlements, but we agreed that the Security Council was not the place to resolve this issue. We knew that going there would make negotiations harder and drive peace further away. And as I told John Kerry on Thursday, friends don't take friends to the Security Council. I'm encouraged by the statements of our friends in the United States, Republicans and Democrats alike. They understand how reckless and destructive this UN resolution was. They understand that the Western Wall isn't occupied territory. I look forward to working with those friends and with the new administration when it takes office next month.
So, yeah, again, this is essentially what Netanyahu's essentially doing the same thing that Vladimir Putin did, actually. They're just waiting out Obama. And if I remember correctly, let me actually go to Donald Trump's Twitter's feed here. Let me go to Real Donald Trump. I believe he sent a message directly on Twitter to Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's see here. Let me go through. We got a bunch of other crap here that he's posted. Yeah, this may take a while here. Okay. Oh, here we go. We cannot continue. This is a series of 2 tweets here. We cannot continue to let Israel be treated with such total disdain and disrespect. This is at Real Donald Trump. They used to have a great friend in the U.S., but, part 2 of the tweet, not anymore. The beginning of the end was the horrible Iran deal, and now this UN, in parentheses with an exclamation mark, stay strong, Israel. January 20th is fast approaching. So, and then Netanyahu responded to that. Let me see if I can find Benjamin Netanyahu. This is going to be complicated. Let me see if I can go back to this article. Hold on a second. I will get this post up here. Hold on. Because I know they responded to this. So I gotta figure out how to spell Benjamin Netanyahu, because that's a complicated name for me to spell. If any of you know about me, if you're longtime listeners, then you will know that I'm horrible at pronouncing last names. Oh, great! What is this? Is all in Hebrew? Oh, okay. We got some other stuff here. President. Oh, here we go. Benjamin Netanyahu talks directly to Donald Trump here. He says, and he quoted this tweet. If you're familiar with Twitter, they can basically retweet and quote it down there. So he's got Donald Trump's quote right there. And then he says, President-elect Trump, thank you for your warm friendship and clear-cut support for Israel, ! A flag of Israel and the United States. He also added Ivanka Trump and Donald Trump Jr. here on this. So very, very warm relations here, it seems like. This is one thing I have to hand to Donald Trump. And again, I am a critic of Donald Trump in many aspects, but I am not a critic in regards to his relations with Israel. I think Israel is our closest ally in the Middle East. They are, if we're going to support anybody in the Middle East at all, which that is even questionable, but if we're going to support anybody, it's definitely going to be Israel. Israel is, first of all, they are a democracy over there, I believe. I don't believe that they are a constitutional republic. I could be wrong. I'm not extremely familiar with the inner workings of their government. But they are the closest like us, and they do want peace. But they're not going to hand over this land that would make them extremely vulnerable to attack to people that want to wipe them off the map and have said so repeatedly over and over and over again. I argue again, this whole Palestinian conflict, this whole Palestinian resentment against the Israelis is because they want to kill them. I believe that firmly. I'd be hard pressed to think differently. I challenge you. If you disagree with me, I know we have a vast array of opinions inside our audience, and I know many people. This is a very divisive issue, especially among my audience. I know because I've spoken with so many of you about this. If you disagree with me, please, let's have a conversation. I would really like to hear from you, whether or not it's now or offline. Get me on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. I'd really like to hear from you, because I think that Israel does have a right to defend their nation, and the territory that they have now that used to belong to other nations was gained after those nations attacked them, and they took that territory to defend themselves. And at this point, I believe it belongs to them. I don't buy into the whole who historically owned what? They've had this for decades. They've had this since 1967. 1967. Many of the people that lived in that area now are not alive. Should we give Texas back to the Mexicans? Is that what? No, we shouldn't. That is the answer. All right. So if you think that we shouldn't give the Texas back to the Mexicans, and we shouldn't just hand over the United States to the Native Americans, to the Cherokees, to the Iroquois, blah 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 blah, then I don't understand you on this issue. It's done. What's done is done. All you can do is move forward. We're not going to allow the Palestinians, at least I don't think we should allow the Palestinians to annihilate Israel. I don't. I think that they're a good ally, and I think we should continue to support them. Now, there are a crapload of allies that we have that I don't think we should continue to support. And I don't particularly think that these big trade agreements and these big alliances that we have are necessarily a good thing. Especially, again, I don't think that we should be strategically allied with Turkey. I don't think Turkey has the best interests of the United States. There's many other countries out there that I can name that I don't believe that have the best interests of the United States, that aren't really our friends. And for those people, I don't think we should be giving aid. I don't think we should be giving protection. I think if you don't like us, and you don't appreciate the protection you've been given underneath the wing of the United States, because make no mistake, if it wasn't for U.S. hegemony in the world, many countries would not exist today. They would be under umbrellas of larger nations, China, Russia. These nations want to expand. Make absolutely no mistake. There are so many nations around the world right now that would not exist if it was not for U.S. hegemony. So, if you don't like us, you're not going to act upon our benefit. If you're not going to at least be grateful for what we've done for you, the amount of U.S. treasure that has been spent to protect you, weaker nations out there who may not necessarily like us. Look, I'm not a hawk. I'm not out there saying that we should invade everywhere. In fact, I'm saying that we should be pulling back and quit trying to be the world's police. Let's protect our friends. Let's protect our allies. Let's look over our allies and make sure the ones that we have that we're willing to go to war for. We're willing to send our men and women to die to protect someone else. Let's make sure that those people are worth it. Let's make sure those people are willing to do the same things. How about that? And let's make sure those people are inclined to want freedom for their people. Now look, they have sovereignty, they have their own sovereignty, and I don't believe that we should be forcing them to be democratic or to be a constitutional republic. But let's also let's at least make it known that we'll have favorites. If your people are free, if you're a government that encourages liberty and doesn't restrict the rights of people, then we're going to be your friends. And in regards to the United Nations, I despise the United Nations. I honestly, I think that we should pull out of it. This is my personal opinion. If not pull out of it, at least drop funding for it. Because this is a worthless organization. It's certainly not worthwhile. And let's point out here, one of the most comical groups, the councils on the United Nations, this is the Human Rights Council. This is a damn joke, all right? I'm going to read off a list of the nations sitting on the Human Rights Council. And some of these are the worst human rights abusers in the world. Here we go. This is alphabetically listed, and you'll hear me laughing as I hit the ones that are incredibly brutal dictatorships or regimes and have no qualms about slaughtering millions of their people. Okay, we have Albania, Bangladesh, Belgium, Bolivia, Botswana, Brazil, Burundi, China. Yeah, China. Anybody remember Tiananmen Square? Congo, all right. Cote d'Ivoire, I have no idea where that is. Probably said that wrong. Croatia, Cuba, sitting on the Human Rights Council. Ecuador, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Iraq, Japan, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Mongolia, Netherlands, Nigeria, Panama, Paraguay, Philippines, Portugal, Qatar, Republic of Korea, Rwanda, Saudi freaking Arabia. You know that place that throws homosexuals off rooftops? Yeah, Saudi Arabia. Slovenia, South Africa, the home of the apartheid, FYI. Switzerland, Togo, Tunisia, yeah. United Emirates, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United States of America, and Venezuela, the home of no toilet paper. You can't buy toilet paper in Venezuela. It's too expensive. Again, Human Rights Council, it's a joke. It is a joke. The United Nations is a joke. It's a farce. And again, it's all it's being used. Many of these countries that absolutely freaking hate and want to see the decimation, the destruction, the annihilation of Israel and the Jewish people, they serve on this council. They serve on this council, and they've used that position on the council to attack Israel over and over and over again. They continue to go after their sovereignty and their territory, and to essentially they make the case that this is about Palestine, but it's not. It is about wiping Israel off the map. Make no mistake. If Israel laid down their weapons and declared peace, it would be just like Iraq. They would be taken over, and they would be killed. But if it was the other way around, there would be peace in the Middle East. So, but I digress. Let's go ahead and talk about what John Kerry, worthless John Kerry, said about the UN vote. I believe there's a clip on this. Let's see. I'm on Fox. No, can't play it. All right, so this is a Fox News article. After UN vote, Kerry suggests Israel's West Bank foray spawning terrorism. Now, this is classic Obama administration. I love it. Here we go. Let's dive into it. The Secretary of State John Kerry is defending the Obama administration's decision to effectively allow the United Nations to condemn Israel for attempting to build more settlements in the disputed West Bank, saying the unprecedented effort has spawned terrorism and violence that jeopardizes lasting peace in the region. Okay, so this is the pot calling the kettle black. This is very funny. Let me just say here, this is typical Obama administration blaming Israel for spawning terrorism when they're the ones that decided they would topple the Egyptian dictator. They were the ones that decided they would topple Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. They were the ones that decided that they would do this all over the Middle East. They just continued to topple dictators. They're trying to go after Assad in Syria. Kept saying Assad must go, Assad must go. Again, drawing red lines all over the place. And what happens when they've created this massive instability, funded terrorism, literally? They created ISIS, literally. They were giving them guns in Benghazi, and then they took those guns when the United States pulled out of Iraq, created the power vacuum. They took those guns and took over the region. And then, guess what? Declared themselves ISIS. Okay? At the time, they were Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So, yeah, they created, funded, trained ISIS. And they have the gall to say that Israel is spawning terrorism by building houses when this administration toppled dictators, creating the power vacuum, armed the terrorists, ISIS, that filled the vacuum. Created, funded, trained them. This is rich. Very rich. But that's this Obama administration. Again, Democrats and the left alike have no ability of self-reflection, no ability to look inward to who's responsible for what. And again, no personal responsibility. They just simply refuse to take responsibility for their actions, and they're always going to look outward and blame someone else for their failings and their incompetence. Anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be in the third hour of our program. Third hour is the overdrive hour. You guys don't want to go anywhere. We got a lot more on the agenda. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On The Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who is looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
And we're back. Welcome to the third hour of On the Move with Mac Worley. Got a lot to talk about. Let's go back through our featured topics and see where we left off here. We were just talking about how the U.S. abstained from voting with the UN, who was criticizing Israeli settlements. And I'd like to read an article here that Ted Cruz was quoted on in regards to this. So this is on theblaze.com. Article was written by Chris Anole. Article dated December 31st, 2016. Ted Cruz, by the way, this is the title of the article. Ted Cruz, history will record President Obama, John Kerry as relentless enemies of Israel. Here's the article. According to Texas Senator Ted Cruz, President Barack Obama and Secretary of State John Kerry have proved to be relentless enemies of Israel. That's what Cruz said earlier this week following the Obama administration supporting an anti-Israel resolution at the United Nations last week, and after Kerry gave a 70-minute speech on Wednesday rebuking Israel for being a sovereign state. Like bitter clingers, President Obama and Secretary Kerry are spending every last minute of this administration wreaking havoc domestically and abroad. With their last breath in office, they have struck at Israel through the United Nations and through today's disgraceful speech. Cruz said in a statement, "These acts are shameful. They are designed to secure a legacy, and indeed they have. History will record, and the world will fully understand Obama and Kerry are relentless enemies of Israel," he added. According to Cruz, Obama and Kerry intentionally designed their foreign policy to weaken and marginalize Israel while emboldening Israel's enemies. Cruz said he believes that Kerry's Wednesday speech, where he called Israel's government the most right-wing extreme in Israeli history, will inflame rising anti-Semitism in Europe and across the world. The Texas senator continued, "It will encourage the mullahs who hate Israel and hate America, and it will facilitate lawfare, growing legal assaults on Israel through transnational legal fora." Kerry's speech drew a stunning moral equivalence between our great ally and the Palestinian Authority, currently formed in a unity government with the vicious terrorists of Hamas. Secretary Kerry declared the Hamas regime in Gaza radical, in the same way he declared the duly elected government of Israel extreme. He declared vicious terrorism sponsored by Hamas equal to Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and he equated Israel's celebration of its birth with the Palestinian description of this event as the disaster. His speech attempted to lay out a historic and seismic shift towards the delegitimization of our ally, Israel, and further empowered the Palestinian Authority. Kerry's central conclusion that Israel can either be Jewish or democratic, it cannot be both, is an inanity. Inanity? I don't know how to say this word. Inanity. I don't know. That passes as profound only in ivory tower faculty lounges. There are roughly 50% majority Muslim countries in the world. I'm sorry. There are roughly 50 majority Muslim countries in the world. There is only one Jewish state, and yet for Kerry and Obama, that is too much. The Israeli Knesset has 17 elected Arab members. It has Muslim members and Christian members. In contrast, one searches in vain for Muslim countries that have elected Jewish representatives. Wow, that is a great point. In fact, the Obama administration's recent policies toward Israel is a true reflection of the ideology of both Obama and Kerry, Cruz alleged. It is a sign of the radicalism and refusal to defend American interests that Obama and Kerry choose to attack the only inclusive democracy in the Middle East, a strong, steadfast ally of America, while turning a blind eye to the Islamic terrorism that grows daily, he wrote. And I will add, as a result of the things that they have done, and will likely hurt them in the end. The former Republican presidential candidate said, as the extreme foreign policy position will backfire and inspire bipartisan repudiation of their radical anti-Israel agenda, according to Politico, congressional Republicans in both the Senate and House are working feverishly to introduce bipartisan legislation next week that declares America's support for Israel while possibly sanctioning the UN. However, Cruz wants more. Ever since the UN passed their anti-Israel resolution last week, Cruz has called on Congress to strip the UN of all U.S. funds. Senator Lindsey Graham has also called for a similar measure. I agree with this, honestly. I'm not a real big fan of creating these international bodies that try to impose their will on other nations around the world. I think there's nothing wrong with having a United Nations, a place where countries, leaders around the world, or ambassadors go around to talk with them and resolve their conflicts peacefully. But I have absolutely nothing but disdain for giving this international body any kind of authority to do anything whatsoever, to impose its will upon a sovereign nation. Who the hell are they to tell Israel or anyone anything? Israel is a sovereign nation. If I was Israel, I would tell them to back the hell off. That's honestly what I would do. They have absolutely no right, and these are a bunch of Muslim nations who continue to attack Israel. And again, I'm not calling all Muslims anti-Semites, but there is a component inside Islam that is very anti-Semitic. All right, and you can disagree, but I think you're living in la la land if you don't see that. That's just my personal opinion. Anyway, and by the way, in Hamas, they have the whole thing where, the rocks and trees will scream out. This is part of their charter. The rocks and trees will scream, "Oh, Abdullah, there's a Jew hiding behind me. Come kill this Jew." This is their writing. They say this. They do not make any qualms about hiding this kind of stuff. They want to kill and eradicate the Jews. So let me just point out, I don't think that the Israelis are going to allow themselves to be eradicated. They've said so on multiple occasions. I don't think that I have no doubt that there's going to be an attempt from Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and I have no doubt that if we don't do something, Israel will do something. And I don't think Israel is messing around. They will not. They've said, Benjamin Netanyahu specifically has been quoted as saying that he will not allow another Holocaust to happen. So, that's. I personally, I don't blame him, and I don't. I would like to see the UN try to come after Israel. These guys are fiercely awesome fighter pilots over there, by the way. If you don't know, the Israeli Air Force is one of the best in the world. And these guys have been battle hardened. I mean, they've been fighting for years, decades. These people have been fighting for their lives for decades. So they are surrounded by people who want to kill them. They are very well funded. They have a very modern military, and mostly thanks to the United States help. But still, these guys are capable of defending themselves, and I think that we should back them if need be. But I digress. So I wanted to mention earlier here, one of the things we were talking about in this Russian hacking scandal. We were talking about how Putin said that there's things that they can, or I'm sorry, Obama said to Putin that you don't hack us because there's things we can do to you too. One of those things that I wanted to mention is that, again, he's a kleptocrat. He's been stealing wealth from the Russian people. This is one of those things that if I was trying to, cast a little shade on Putin, if I wanted to basically do something back, if I was the Obama administration, or hell, even Trump, the Trump administration, if things continue to be tense between the United States and Russia, which I think they're going to continue to be, because it's not that Putin is going against Obama. It's not that Obama is a Russian hater and Putin just doesn't like Democrats, or Putin's an honorary member of the Republican Party. No. It's that Putin wants to expand. Putin wants to put back the old Soviet Union. He wants to get that whole thing going again and potentially expand. And in order to do that, he has to push against U.S. hegemonic power, the U.S. dominance of international security, essentially, international norms, boundaries. If it wasn't for this U.S. hegemony that we have now, if it wasn't for the United States, nation-to-nation warfare would be ongoing to this day. We would see massive territorial expansions. We would see wars between nations, but we don't see that kind of thing so much anymore, with the exception of like Russia's, taking over Crimea and Georgia, that kind of thing. But this is something that has we've been really living in this unprecedented time of peace because of U.S. hegemony. And it's because we're good people. Let me just point out, we're good people. Because we could have been using this like other empires around the world to expand our territory. We could have been like the Roman Empire and going around and just conquering all the little nations out there and just taking them over and making them U.S. territory. I mean, we did that for a while, all right? We did that for a long while. Manifest Destiny, going westward and taking over territory. Hawaii, for example, that was not a very peaceful transition. If anybody who's familiar with how Hawaii became the state, but I will say we are overall a moral nation, good people. We don't want to use, again, one of the things with Iraq. We kept saying this is we're not conquering or I think it's we're not conquering, we're liberating. Is one of the common things that we were saying. Back in the day, like in Roman times, they would conquer. For example, in Gaul, I'll give you a little history lesson here if you're interested in this, if you guys are. This is one of the things I'm actually really passionate about and I enjoy, is like ancient Roman history. I think it's fascinating, and just unbelievably fascinating. There was a campaign in Gaul, which is the equivalent of like modern-day France. Gaul had a lot of they called them barbarians. The Romans called them barbarians, which essentially meant other, somebody from somewhere else. So they called everybody that they didn't know barbarian, but particularly the Gaul. And these were a bunch of warring tribes of men. They didn't have a whole lot of technology. They were basically fighting with axes, and they didn't have great armor. They were the kind of guys that you would see like in Braveheart. Paint yourself up, and you have a sword or an axe, that kind of thing, and they just paint themselves up and run screaming at people. All right, and many of these guys were impeccable fighters individually, but when they came against the Roman Empire, a trained army that was used to moving in formation with one another, and they were well armed and equipped. They had swords and armor that was very protective and gave them an advantage. So, and they were fighting with tactics in formation that these barbarians, these Gaul, were not used to. So in this time, they came to attack these guys, and in many cases, by the way, the Romans actually used essentially propaganda to take over this territory. They in many cases were saying, hey, well, we've allied with one of these tribes, which was true. They would go in and they would ally with a tribe, and they would say, tell you what, you help us fight in this region, you give us support, and we'll put you guys in power when we take over. You guys can be whoever that they're dealing with. They say you'll be the governor of the region or whatever, and you'll manage it for us. And this is what the Romans did a lot of places, is they would ally with somebody in that region, and then they would say that they're not invading the territory, they're liberating it, essentially. They're doing the same thing that we would do. They're putting in a proxy government, and it would become their territory, though, and they would plunder it and send those riches back to the capital, and in tribute to Caesar or whoever. Point being, by the way, Julius Caesar is the one that was running the campaign in Gaul, and that was where he got his fame and his wealth, and that's what led to him becoming the emperor, because he was directed to basically disband his army and return to Rome, where he thought that he was going to be assassinated by Pompey, and I can't remember the other. There's another general that was attacking him, basically, or that was like in conflict with them for power. So, long story short, Julius Caesar decides that he's not going to go back and be killed. He brings his army across the river. I believe that's the Rhine, if I'm remembering this. This is all off the top of my head. I did absolutely no preparation. Brings his army back across the Rhine, and that was a big no-no back then. You couldn't bring your army past the Rhine, but he did, and long story short, he ends up becoming the emperor. So, the first emperor. Anyway, very interesting stuff. So that is, unlike Roman times, we don't conquer the territory and install, it's not, maybe we're installing puppet governments. That's true. We're still doing that. That's an age-old practice right there, installing puppet governments after you conquer a territory. But we're trying to say the same thing as what the Romans were saying. We're liberating them. We're this tribe has been attacked by this tribe, and we're protecting our ally. Blah blah blah. I guess this is a practice that's been going on for decades or for millennia, since the beginning of recorded history, I'm sure. But everybody has to sleep at night. Everybody has to find a way to close those eyes at the end of the night. And that's what the Romans did. And I guess that's what we're still doing now. But we don't keep the territory. When we invaded Iraq, it didn't become like the Iraqi province of the United States. It's Iraq. It has its own government who's not really particularly fond of us, so they're not really that big of a shill for us. So I digress. Anyway, this Obama administration obviously is very inept at picking allies and putting shill governments in place, puppet governments in place, and they seem hell-bent on relinquishing their puppet governments, as we saw with them supporting the toppling of the Egyptian dictator. Again, this is amateur hour. The Obama administration, amateur hour. They don't know what they're doing, or if they do know what they're doing, they are doing things that fits a particular agenda, which again I argue they do know what they're doing in some cases. I think they try to do certain things and they fail at their attempts, but what they're ultimately trying to do is undermine U.S. hegemony, because that's what Obama wants. Obama thinks that, and he said this. He wants to take the U.S. down a peg or two, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, but he thinks that the U.S. is too big, and he wants to relinquish some of that power. That's why he went on this big apology tour when he was first running. He was running for the world president. And again, I argue that we have not seen the last of Obama. There's going to be international organizations that are going to come into fruition. If the United Nations goes out, by the way, even if it doesn't, Obama may be trying to run for the United Nations, some position over there, some big position. Also, keep in mind, the Democrats are really lost right now. The Democrat Party, they don't know who their leader is going to be. I argue, honestly, I think that Cory Booker, this is my prediction, mark my words right now, if you're listening to my voice right now, Cory Booker, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's got a lot of charisma. He's a lefty. I think that he's probably going to be the guy. He's an African-American male. He's a good-looking man. I think he's probably going to be their pick. If they were smart, they would pick him. That's what I would do. I don't agree with hardly anything he believes, he stands for, but I think that he would be a good pick for them as the next presidential candidate. He's young. Again, it doesn't matter about experience. Especially if Donald Trump can run, anybody can be president. I'm telling you right now, The Rock is going to run. You have Kanye West has said he's going to run in 2020. Again, The Rock, by the way, Dwayne Johnson, the actor, the wrestler, the pro wrestler, is saying he's going to run for the president of the United States. He's considering it He's really putting a lot of consideration into this. Anyway, then there was one more. That guy who was on that island with that ball, the volleyball or something named Wilson. I can't remember his name. Very fit. Tom Hanks. There we go. Wow. Brain fart that. Tom Hanks is talking about running too. I think this year they've realized, last year, I forgot. We're at the new year. I think the Democrats have realized that if this is a popularity contest, they have all the big celebrities. The left has all of the most popular people. So if we're really going to take this down, and it's not going to be about qualifications, it's just going to be about a popularity contest. Essentially, idiocracy has arrived. We're in for some trouble if that's the case. I hope that we're not looking back on like the Victorian age of politics, and now it's going to be more like a reality TV show. I really hope that's not going to be the case, because if so, and my prediction, again, if the economy collapses, which I believe it will, it's all going to get blamed on the Republicans. Everything that they're trying to do. Again, many of the things that this incoming administration is doing is going to be big government. It's going to be crony corporatism. It's not going to be free market. It's going to be tariffs, anti-free market. It's going to do things that are going to shrink the GDP, hurt the economy, things like that. It's not free market. It's not. It's just not. So. It's not capitalism. It's not pure unfettered capitalism. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope the things that Donald Trump has said, he's just misconstrued. He's just spoke it wrong. He's just not understood it. And I hope he actually does unfettered capitalism, no crony corporatism, no special favors for big corporations, getting rid of regulations, cutting red tape, not putting tariffs on corporations, because, again, that will shrink the GDP, and just letting people do what they need to do. All right, getting out of the freaking way. If that happens, then that'd be great. And maybe the growth from the GDP from that would be able to offset the crash. But I don't think so. I honestly, I don't think so. I think we're headed for a crash. I don't think that there's any way out of this. And when that crash happens, the Trump administration and the Republicans are going to be blamed. And I contend that the people who, if there's any government left to pick up the pieces, the people who will are going to be the Democrats, and they're going to be like, see, look, we told you, these guys, they don't know what they're doing. You gotta elect us. And it's going to be people like Cory Booker, or here's another prediction, folks, Michelle Obama, that are going to be picking up the pieces on that side. I do not believe we've seen the end of the Obamas. This has just begun. It's only just begun. So, mark my words. We'll see. We'll see if I'm right in the end of this. So we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I have some other news stories here that I want to get to. I want to talk about China's housing bubble, musician John Legend, terror in Istanbul, and North Korea, minimum wage. Got some other things, too, here. Lots on the agenda. We'll see what we have time for. But anyway, we'll be right back after this break, folks. Do not go anywhere.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bare Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. All right, so China's got a housing bubble. Let's go ahead and talk about this real fast. Here's a couple articles I have on this. Let's go ahead and open it up. This is on Reuters, Reuters.com. Article is titled, China's Property Curbs Set to Stay in Place in 2017, Government Think Tank. This article is written by, no idea, reporting by Yowen Chen and Ryan Wu. And this article is dated Sunday, December 25th, 2016. A slew of property curbs introduced this year in China's biggest cities are likely to be kept throughout 2017, while Beijing looks to develop a long-term mechanism to stem speculation, a government think tank was reported as saying on Monday. Soaring house prices this year have prompted more than 20 Chinese cities to tighten lending requirements on house purchases. Regulators have told banks to strengthen risk management around property loans. House price growth will gradually slow in 2017, with certain time periods likely seeing actual price declines, the Academy said, without giving further details, according to the state-owned Economics Information Daily. But the Academy said current restrictive measures were insufficient and had limited effects, as they didn't affect the incentive for speculative buying in the absence of fiscal and tax policies and effective land policies. Top leaders said earlier in December that curbing property speculation would be the new property policy tone for the year ahead, signaling a shift in policy focus. President Xi Jinping reiterated last week China's approach to regulating its red-hot property market will include financial, fiscal, tax, land, and regulatory measures. So they're trying to take measures here, using the big government measures, obviously, to do something about this housing bubble that they have. And again, I don't think this is going to work, because typically when you turn to the government, it ends up making the problem worse, and usually it's responding to a problem that it created in the first place. In this case is one of them as well. Here's another article. China stocks erase loss as builders get official boost. So let's go ahead and dive into this article. It's on Bloomberg.com. Article is written by, it doesn't say here. Let's see. With assistance by Helen Sun. That's all I can see of anybody's name on here. Yeah, sorry. I hate it when I can't find the name of who wrote the article. Anyway, December 25th, 2016, that's when the article was written. The article reads, China stocks rose in afternoon trading to erase earlier losses as investors bet on state-backed builders after the government announced a spending plan for public works that included 5,000 kilometers of new highway next year. The Shanghai Composite Index rose 0.4% to 3,122.57 at the close, reversing a loss as much as 1.3%. China Communication Construction Company surged 7.9% for its biggest gain since November 3rd. Other large state-owned builders of housing, ships, and nuclear plants also jumped. The Shenzhen Composite Index erased an earlier loss to add 0.4%. So China's, again, I think this is almost manipulative of the stock market itself, because this is essentially a stimulus plan. They're using the government. All right, the government is having state-backed builders build these public works projects of 5,000 kilometers of new highway, and that is stimulating the stock market to erase the losses that they had. So this is essentially no different than a QE program. I mean, they're pumping definitely billions of dollars into a public works program in order to raise the stocks of these state-backed builders, and as a result, they're covering up their losses in their stock market. So they have a housing bubble, they have a stock market bubble. I'm telling you right now, folks, the economy, the global economy is prime. It's ready to crash. Even China, Russia, the United States, we're all having little fluctuations in our stock market. It's surging up and down, and we're told right now. And by the way, one of the things I heard from an economist, I was doing research for a college paper, one of my last papers I wrote in college. By the way, I graduated just recently. If for those of you out there who didn't know, I was in college. I've now recently graduated. I got my bachelor's degree in political science and government. I'm really excited about that. There's a lot of work and effort to get that, and I'm really happy I finally do. And I'm planning on going back to school to become a lawyer. So I'm just letting you guys know some things in my life here that if you didn't know. But that's not going to be for a while. I won't be able to go to law school for probably until August 2018, I think. Miss some deadlines. So it's okay, though. But I digress. Back to the article. One of the things that I heard when researching an article for one of my last classes was how you can tell if there's a bubble is if there's volatility in something. If there's enough volatility, then you can tell that there's a bubble. Well, if you look at our stock market, you look at China's stock market, you look at everything that we've been seeing in the last year, 2016, it was crazy volatility in the stock market. There's definitely a bubble. So I contend that, again, our stock market, it's all artificially propped up. China's and probably most of the world is probably artificially propping up their stock markets. So I contend that you guys need to be prepared. By 2018, this is just my feeling, my gut feeling here. I think that this can't go on much longer, and I think that the feds, they're not going to continue to prop it up underneath the Trump administration. And I think it's all going to be blamed on the Republicans. And I think this is only going to be good for the Democrats in the end, even though they're the ones that created the problem. They've essentially dropped a hot potato in Donald Trump's lap. He's going to be the one to pay the price. And he's going to be looked at as the greedy billionaire businessman, crony capitalist. But they're going to drop that crony and just call him a capitalist. He's going to be, again, I believe he is a crony capitalist. He's used eminent domain and bribe public officials to get business-related favors. Again, that's crony corporatism. But he's going to be just called a capitalist, and this is what people are going to think of, and he's going to be blamed for all the crash and all the stuff that's going to follow. I hope I'm wrong. I genuinely do. I want to be wrong on this, because I understand what this means. With this kind of collapse, it's going to be extremely bad for us. I think a lot of people are going to get killed, will die. A lot. I mean, and in the ensuing chaos that will happen, I think what would end up happening if the government collapses, if our economy collapses the way I think it will, we have a bunch of entitled jerks running around that have been listening to the left for far too long, become radicalized, and think that they're entitled to things. And now, I just think that we've gotten to the point where if the government money stops coming in, EBT, welfare, that kind of stuff, if people go to the grocery stores and try to buy stuff with their food stamps or EBT cards, I think if they're denied and that money's not there, they're going to get mad. And I think we're primed right now for riots. Civil unrest is going to blow up, I believe, at the same time as a financial collapse. I think those two are going to go hand in hand, and if that does, I urge you to get out of the cities. I've been telling you and warning you for the longest time now to make a plan to, at least at a minimum, if you can't move out of the city, if you can't get away from huge population centers, you need to have a plan to go somewhere else outside the city if something like that happens, because the cities are literally going to be on fire in the kind of collapse that I'm talking about. You'll need to save yourself. You'll need to save your family. Go somewhere safe. Have a plan. Again, this is not to even speak about preparing food and water for that kind of collapse. But anyway, so my point is just mentioning this story about China is that their stock market is volatile, and they have a housing bubble as well. So keep this in mind. Now, I want to talk here about some changes. Now, we're in the new year, some changes that you can expect here that are not necessarily good for the new year, but unfortunately, Donald Trump, I'm sure, would agree with these. It's minimum wage rising in nearly 24 states in 2017. So here's an article on NBCnews.com written by Emma Margolin. Millions of Americans are set to receive higher pay in the new year despite potential confirmation of millionaire labor secretary who once opposed the Obama administrations to raise the federal minimum wage. 22 states plus the District of Columbia will see their minimum wages increase over the course of 2017, according to the Fairness Project, a non-profit organization that supports progressive causes. In addition, dozens of cities will see similar hikes. The raises are owed in large part to a strategy adopted by the Obama administration to circumvent an obstructionist, there's that word again, obstructionist Republican Congress. Rather than give up their domestic policy agenda, the president and his aides have aggressively used the bully pulpit to push cities and states toward adopting key proposals, including higher minimum wage. The raises also reflect a galvanized roots of effort that managed to convince an enormous number of voters of the need of higher pay. So, first of all, I'm wondering what they did, how they used the bully pulpit. That's a link here. I'm clicking NBC News. Let's see what that goes to. How Obama is reinventing the bully pulpit in Blue America. With almost no input from Republicans, President Barack Obama has advanced much of his domestic policy agenda in Blue America, getting liberal-leaning cities and states to take up ideas that can't be adopted nationally because opposition on Capitol Hill. In his State of the Union address over the last 3 years and other speeches, the president has proposed a series of ideas such as universal preschool that have not caught on in Congress. The president and his aides have aggressively used the bully pulpit to push cities, states, and corporations to adopt these proposals, often with little support or funding from Washington. Okay, so basically he's just pushing people in places that he can get it done. So let's go back to the other article that we were on here and see what places it's happening here. So in the Northeast, most raises are due to decisions by lawmakers. So it looks like, okay, we've got Michigan. Is that Pennsylvania? I think it's New York, and most some of these other northeastern places like Massachusetts, and I don't know. I'm not very good at geography, but yeah, these smaller places, and then we have raises due to ballot measures. So these were not okay. This was direct democracy. These were citizens voting on initiative ballots. We have Maine, Florida, Ohio, a couple states in the middle of the country. I think that's South Dakota right there, Wyoming, Montana. I think that is Arizona or New Mexico. Sorry, I'm terrible at that. Nevada, California, Oregon, and Washington all raised their minimum wage. Oh, here's actually the list here. Let's go back here. States are seeing raises due to... let me go back here. The raises also reflect a galvanization of grassroots efforts to convince enormous people. Let me just point out on this one, I think we're losing. We're losing this battle about minimum wage. And minimum wage is a bad thing. It takes money out of your pocket. It literally is, first of all, if you're not making minimum wage now, you're hurting yourself for voting for increased minimum wage. All you've done is you've given yourself a pay cut because the prices will rise, but you're not getting any extra money, so you're actually hurting yourself. You're actually literally voting for a pay cut for yourself. You're not being magnanimous. magnanimous and helping other people, you're actually screwing yourself over hardcore. It's really stupid. If you don't make minimum wage, don't vote for minimum wage increases because you're voting against your own interest. Second of all, people have a right to contract. And in fact, what minimum wage does is it ensures that employers don't have to pay more to be bigots or to be sexist. They can just pay everybody the same amount, and it doesn't cost them anything to be racist or anything like that. So you, as like, for example, if you're a woman trying to get a job from a misogynist employer, you can't offer to work for less. So this ensures that you'll not get the job. It also it prices people out of the labor market. If you're just not worth it, you'll never get a job if you don't have the resume, the experience to get the job. They're not going to hire anybody with no experience. So that means that, unfortunately, young Americans are going to be out of a job. And statistically, minimum wage hurts black youth. It does. It prevents them from getting employment. So minimum wage is a bad policy. But we're failing this message. We're not winning this battle of convincing people that minimum wage is not within their own interest. So, and again, even if you are on minimum wage, if you're earning minimum wage, you're not actually helping yourself either by voting for minimum wage. It's not like, in theory it sounds good. Oh, I'm going to vote to give myself more money. How could I not be helping myself with that? Well, no. Unfortunately, according to studies, and there are quite a few of them on this, it's been empirically proven that raising minimum wage raises the cost of goods and merchandise. So, goods and service, excuse me. So, and in some cases, it actually raises the price for goods and services higher than what they've got the increase for. So, it literally does not make any sense. You are giving your other people a pay cut who aren't even on minimum wage right now, because they didn't get a raise, but you're also not really helping yourself, and in some cases you could actually be hurting yourself because, you might be making more money, but now everything costs more money. And even worse, now you may get replaced by a machine and not even have a job. So just look what happened. It's happening in McDonald's. McDonald's is replacing their, like places like Seattle or Washington State, that in California. I've also read about this. Places that have $15 minimum wage. McDonald's is just replacing those employees with kiosks. So now you have no job. Before you had a job that didn't provide you that much money, but now you don't have any job. Isn't some job better than no job? I would argue it is, yes. Anyway, the article continues. 70% of these raises came from ballot initiatives. Jonathan Schiffler, executive director of the Fairness Project, told NBC. So it's not so much that there's been a major shift from our elected officials. Rather, it's low-wage workers, it's their neighbors, it's folks in their communities who overwhelmingly voted to support ballot initiatives raising the minimum wage. Again, people think they're being magnanimous, but they're really not. They're voting against their own interest. States that are seeing raises due to ballot measures include Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Florida, Maine, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, Oregon, South Dakota, Washington, and the District of Columbia. Connecticut, Connecticut, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New York, and Vermont, meanwhile, have their lawmakers to thank for the minimum wage hikes. Some of the increases are small. By the way, FYI, just to give you a heads up, this isn't going to change because Donald Trump got elected. He said that there should be higher minimum wage as well. So he's going to support increasing federal minimum wage. Again, that's a bad policy. If he tries to do this, I'll oppose him. I think he's a big government guy. I've laid out reason after reason why he continues to turn to the government for the solutions. I hope that he changes his mind on this and he doesn't try to impose a increased federal income or increased federal wage, federal minimum wage. Anyway, some of these increases are small, amounting to only a few cents. As in Florida, where minimum wage will go from $8.05 to $8.10 on January, but workers' rights advocates insist any increase, no matter how tiny, makes a difference. When you're talking about the types of decisions that minimum wage workers are making, trading off whether they'll pay for their health care bill or their groceries, any increase is significant, Schiffler said. The raises are especially notable when compared to federal minimum wage, which has stayed constant at $7.25 since 2009. President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Labor Secretary Andrew F. Puzder opposed the Obama administration efforts to raise the federal minimum wage to $10 2010, well below the $15 minimum wage that many advocates are calling for. The new labor secretary has been opposed to the interests of workers on almost every level, including expanding overtime wages and raising the minimum wage, said Paul Sun, General Counsel and Program Director at the National Employment Law Project, a workers' rights group. Even if Puzder is confirmed, the movement to raise minimum wages at the state and local level will prevail, Sun said. This movement will only get stronger, he said. So, let's point out this kind of economic policy, this kind of domestic economic policy of raising minimum wage, that is absolutely nothing to do with what his position would be doing. Labor secretary, it's not like he's going to be deciding himself, Andrew F. Puzder, to impose or to impose or not to impose minimum wage increases. It's not going to be up to him. That's going to be based off of what Trump wants to do. And as I've mentioned, Trump has said in the past that he supports increasing the federal minimum wage. So this is ultimately, it's going to be up to Trump. And I hope that him nominating Puzder, who has opposed an increase in the federal minimum wage, I hope that this is a flag as to, or like an indicator that he doesn't want to increase the minimum wage anymore. I hope that. I don't know, but let's take a look. We got a New York Times article. This is about Andrew Puzder. Trump's labor pick, Andrew Puzder, is critic of minimum wage increases. This is written by Noam Schreiber. President-elect Donald Trump on Thursday chose Andrew Puzder, chief executive of the company that franchises the fast food outlets Hardee's and Carl's Jr., and an outspoken critic of workers' protections enacted by the Obama administration, to be Secretary of Labor. Andy Puzder has created and boosted the careers of thousands of Americans, and his extensive record fighting for workers makes him the ideal candidate to lead the Department of Labor, said Mr. Trump Sunday in a statement. Mr. Puzder, age 66, fits the profile of some of Mr. Trump's other domestic cabinet appointments. He's a wealthy businessman and political donor and has a long record of promoting a conservative agenda that takes aim at President Obama's legacy. And more than other appointments, he resembles Mr. Trump in style. He seems to delight in bashing elites. He complained that big corporate interests and globalist companies were supporting Hillary Clinton in the presidential election, and is prone to occasional streak of political incorrectness. Our policy questions, he argued, that the Obama administration's recent rule expanding the eligibility for overtime pay diminishes opportunities for workers, and that significant minimum wage increases would hurt small businesses and lead to job losses. Significant minimum wage increases. So perhaps he does support some increases. So this was kind of the way that Mr. Gosh, I'm doing it. This is the way that Donald Trump played it when talking about minimum wage. He said, there should be some increases. I don't know. I don't exactly know what there is, but I don't think he was calling for like a $15 minimum wage increase. I think he was calling for something. Now, I don't know what in his mind he wants the minimum wage to be. I'm not even positive if he said that, but I think Donald Trump still wants to raise the minimum wage, and I think any raise is a bad thing. The mere existence of a minimum wage is a negative force. So anyway, so maybe these guys are more closely aligned than they're making this out to be. So let's go to our featured topics here again. Let's see. We got a few minutes left in the show. Let's talk about John Legend vowing to oppose the Trump administration. First of all, John Legend doesn't really have much ability to do much. He says that he'll oppose it at every step. But again, this is all the indicating. This is the this is what the left does, is they continue to indicate to one another how moral they are of a person and how awesome they are by saying who they oppose and what they do. So let's see what John Legend says. Musician John Legend said in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine that he plans to remain vigilant throughout Trump's presidency, fearing that Trump will dismantle President Barack Obama's progressive accomplishment. Well, I hope so. I sure hope so. So we have to be ready to tell the truth and reflect what's going on, Legend said in the interview. We've gone through some really dark periods in this country. You can't trivialize them because they cost people their lives, but we have made progress since those times. And even when we go backward, there's definitely an opportunity for us to go forward again. We just have to be vigilant and get through this, and then hopefully it'll be over soon. He added, it's a very different kind of world now, knowing that someone's going to possibly dismantle a lot of what Obama accomplished. Again, I argue that the things that Obama has done, increasing the state, the federal leviathan, has done nothing but hurt the poor people in this country. It's done nothing to hurt the marginalized people in this country. Unfortunately, we're losing this marketing campaign here, and people don't even understand that. So it's really unfortunate. Things that Obama did should be dismantled. And it's really interesting that he talks about the progressive accomplishment of Barack Obama, because progressives, the ideology of progressives, are in fact anti-black. Many of these progressives actually were eugenists, and they wanted to exterminate black people. They considered them inferior. They did not consider them human, essentially. So this is what the progressive movement is, and this is, it came out of the Dixiecrats in the South that believed in segregation and slavery, and the Democratic Party is the party of slavery. The dark times that John Legend is talking about, he's referring to times when Democrats were doing these things. It was the Democrat sheriffs that were spraying African Americans with water hoses, beating them with batons, and shooting them with rubber bullets. This is the Democrats, all right? It was the Democrats that were for slavery in the South. Those were Democrat policies. It's the progressives that created Planned Parenthood in an effort to exterminate the black population. That was the progressives, the Democrats. So if you really understood what his own interests were, and in the history of what he's advocating for and the people he advocates for, he surely would not be advocating for progressive agendas promoted by Barack Obama. So we have a few minutes left in the show here. I want to get to another really important story. I'll just go ahead and read this article. There's another article on Blaze written by Sarah Lee. This is a report. The article is titled, Report, North Korea Close to Testing Intercontinental Ballistic Missiles. Kim Jong-un, leader of nuclear-capable North Korea, has indicated his country is close to testing a long-range intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM. Kim made an announcement in a New Year's Day speech saying the tests are in the final stages and a launch is imminent, Reuters reports. North Korea tested ballistic missiles at an unprecedented rate during 2016, although some experts have said it's years away from developing an ICBM fitted with nuclear warhead capable of reaching the United States. A successful ICBM test launch would mark a significant step forward for the secretive Pyongyang's weapons capability. ICBMs have a minimum range of 5,500 kilometers or 3,418 miles, but some are designed to travel 10,000 kilometers or further. The U.S. state of California is roughly 9,000 kilometers from North Korea. North Korea has been under international sanctions since 2006 due to its missile tests, with those sanctions becoming even stricter after September 2016 following their largest nuclear test to date. President-elect Donald Trump and his incoming National Security Advisor, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, have both expressed an interest in North Korea's test, with Trump requesting a special classified intelligence briefing to discuss the country's nuclear program. Reuters quotes An Chan-il, a former North Korean military officer who defected to South Korea and runs a think tank in Seoul, as saying that Trump's language concerning Pyongyang's nuclear tests will play a role in Kim's decision making. If Trump comes in and the North does not get a good signal in terms of how the relationship between the two countries is going to go, that'll give them another reason to do it, and said. North Korea launched a satellite into space last February, which was widely considered to be a test of the isolated nation's long-range ballistic missile technology, Reuters notes. So this is scary times. North Korea is now potentially going to test a nuclear weapon, an intercontinental ballistic missile, which is not necessarily the nuclear weapon, it's the delivery mechanism, this delivery vehicle. This is not good, folks. Again, there are very bad people out there, and North Korea has threatened to use nuclear weapons against us in the past. I don't believe that North Korea should be allowed to get a nuclear weapon again. If you're in that dark alley and you have a gun, you are armed, and somebody has threatened your life, somebody said that they're going to shoot you, and there's a gun between you and them, you have every right to defend yourself. It is suicide not to. You are allowing yourself to be killed if you do not defend yourself. And you have a choice to make. You could allow that person to pick up the gun and see what happens. You could see if maybe you can draw quicker than they can draw. Or you can tell that person, don't pick up that gun. If you do, I'm going to shoot you. If you go for that gun, I'm going to shoot you. And if they choose to go for the gun, they have made the choice, not you. They have made the decision. So if it were me, I would warn North Korea. I would let them know, we're not going to allow you to get nuclear weapons if you continue testing. You do one more thing. I'm not freaking kidding. If you don't dismantle everything you're doing right now, it's on like freaking Donkey Kong. That's just me. But I happen to believe people when they tell me that they want to kill me. And I personally would not feel comfortable allowing North Korea to get nuclear weapons, nor would I feel comfortable allowing Iran to get nuclear weapons. They are the bad guy in the dark alley saying that they're going to kill us. It is literally suicide to allow them to get this weapon. But I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. Hit me up on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. We got about 4 minutes left in the show. Let's go ahead in the last 4 minutes here, last few minutes. I'll go ahead and do one final segment. It's one I like. It's called The Weekly Defender. Here we go.
And now it's time for the Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your right, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, there was a Waffle House employee that was fired after using a gun in self-defense during a robbery. This is from The Blaze. A Waffle House waitress in Georgia says she was fired after she discharged a gun in self-defense when a restaurant she worked at was recently robbed. Heather Shorty Birkinshaw Stanley told the Newnan Times Herald last week that she learned on Friday via phone that she had been terminated by Waffle House one day after she acted in self-defense when her restaurant was being robbed. More from the Times Herald. 3 men ate a meal and then, instead of paying, gave the cashier a note warning everyone in the building would be shot if money in the register wasn't handed over to the trio. After they departed on foot, Stanley retrieved a gun from her own car in the parking lot and fired over the heads of the robbers. That's when Birkinshaw Stanley ran to her car and retrieved the gun, firing it into the air in self-defense to ward away the robbers. I wasn't sure if they were coming back or not. I was in fear for my life, my coworkers' lives, and did what I thought was right, she told the newspaper. All right. Well, look, I mean, I don't really think it's probably a smart idea to go shooting guns off into the air at people who are leaving. They were obviously leaving. But you do have a right to defend yourself. And, these criminals, I'm not sure if they've been caught, but I certainly don't think that she should be losing her job for this. Maybe she should probably get some information about what the procedures were. I'm not even sure if she's actually received any training at all on this. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think she should have shot the gun in the air at the robbers as they were leaving? I know that there's actually people in jail right now who have shot people in their front yard. I've heard of a case where some dude chased a guy out of his house and hit him with a baseball bat because he thought he was drawing a gun, but he wasn't. And killed him in the yard there. He was already out of the house, though, and the guy went to jail for that. So, I don't know. This is one of those gray areas, but again, I support the right to defend yourself. If this lady pulled the gun out in defense of herself in the restaurant or something and was trying to stop the guys, then I would absolutely support that. And again, I wasn't there. I don't know what the situation was. I'm more inclined to support the gun owner here, the law-abiding citizen, than I am the criminals. And I'm certainly not going to call them victims. So good on you. Anyway, that's our show for today, folks. We didn't get an opportunity to talk about the terrorist attack or the attack in Istanbul from the man dressed as Santa Claus that killed 39 people. My heart goes out to those people, to the victims of that, and that's all I can really say. But anyway, thanks for tuning in today, folks. I really do appreciate your continued support. MacPack, you're the tip of the spear. And don't forget to check us out at our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Like or follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.